Welcome, everybody, to MogTalk episode 201. If you are unfamiliar with MogTalk, it's a show based around the Final Fantasy XIV community discussing everything from Savage Raiding to Chocobo Racing, and I am now a auctioneer, and I shout and talk really fast so you guys can't hear what I'm saying, and hopefully maybe you can decipher a little bit of it. But today is September 12th, 2020, and today's show is going to be about healing, and I have three wonderful guests joining me. So we don't just all sit here awkwardly. I'm going to have them all introduce themselves really quick. We're going to go, I guess, clockwise here. So we'll start with Oryza. Tell everybody who you are, dude.
Hi. I'm Ori, hardcore raider. Recently healer main. Started healing about a year ago, and I stream on Twitch, and that's about it.
Great. You know, I was joking about how you said, hi, I'm Ori. And I mean, you went maybe a step further than that, and I appreciate it.
Just for you, Frosty.
Thank you. Then next we have apparently Momo, who's carrying his co-healer or something. I don't know.
Whoa! That's not true. Okay, whoa.
Okay, no.
Because he's my world.
The world, yeah.
Oh, it's not on your back. You carrying him. Okay, it's not really heavy. Okay.
He's Rince's whole world.
Oh, I get it. I guess you can interpret it that way. Momo, tell everybody who you are, dude.
My name's Momo. I've been healing since Delta Escape. I've been on the show a few times. How's it going?
Just right there. You guys are knocking this out of the park, by the way. And then last but not least, first time on the show, we have Salted Levity, which I'm going to refer to as Levy as much as I can and do my best.
Keeps calling me Salted.
Yeah. So tell everybody who you are.
I'm Levy. I've been playing a healer since Midas, so I guess I'm technically the oldest healer here. White Mage Mentor on the balance is probably what most of you know me for. If you've used the little job blob emojis, you might know me for that. Or the website I'm making, Salted XIV, which has guides and whatever you might want. Created content, the works. Yeah, that's me.
Okay. I'm a Midas healer too. It was the last time I healed, but it was the first time I healed as well. Good old days.
It's a good tier to heal.
Not for my raid group. But no, I appreciate it. But guys, we wanted to discuss healer. It's been a pretty big topic recently, especially with the changes in 5.3. It's definitely the hottest topic before the expansion because we've been a little bit, I don't know. There's been a lot of negative things said about healer. I'm sure there's been some positive things out there said about healer, and recently all the changes that Square Enix has done, right, guys? There's been some positive things about healer. There's positive things we'll say today.
They're pretty.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's good. All right, so we're going to go off of that. Healers are pretty, so we said our good thing. Oryza, what is the current state of healers, and how do you feel about them?
All right. Well, I want to preface this with saying I started healing a year ago, so I actually know nothing about Stormblood healer and nothing about Heavensward healer. So I'm just here to talk about only Shadowbringers healer, I guess.
That's okay. That's the only thing that's relevant right now, anyways, right?
I guess that's true. Yeah. What's the question? I forgot it.
The state of healers. So how are healers doing? Are healers in a good spot, or are they in a bad spot, or are we constantly declining into this horrible chaos where healers just shouldn't exist in the game anymore? Or I mean, what's going on with healers?
Healers don't heal. It's just there's nothing to heal.
Okay.
There's no reason to heal.
It's really how good of a healer are you by how little you can heal, I suppose, right? How much you can DPS.
I suppose it was always like that, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Trying to figure out how to optimize your heals isn't it's its own way of gameplay, and it's it might not be everyone's cup of tea, right? Some people might want to heal more, and they might prefer WoW's healing, where it's a lot more active. But the problem is the problem is that the DPSing, trying to figure out how to DPS as much as you can, is just became a lot more simple. That's there just isn't enough things to heal, and you have these extremely buff healer toolkits that don't fit the content anymore. If you think about the most recent Savage tier, if you look at E6 and E7 in particular, like Diurnal Astro can basically solo heal the whole fight. Like you don't even need two healers except for the mechanics like, might require a second healer depending on, your tether RNG or whatever. But like other than that, like if a healer can solo heal a fight using only its off globals, like with Astro, it's like unbuff horoscope, star, collective unconscious, celestial opposition, you pretty much heal everything. And it's kind of like, why do we have all these other tools? Like, why do you have neutral sect? Why does white mage like exist? Like, why did scholar exist? Like, it's just like so unnecessary, I think. And then even when you get into something like Shiva, like she does a decent amount of raid damage, but then like she has issues where like her auto attacks are strong, but she barely does them. And then I'm just like going on this whole thing, but
no,
like
it's okay.
Like even like for a final tier, it's supposed to be really hard, right? But then like she only casts absolute 0 once, and you're like, well, okay. And then there's almost no heal check in the whole phase beyond just like, if you want to play safe, I'll just like sucker here, like I have a safety sucker here, like optional, and like that's about it. Like the only thing you might even have to heal is like the last bit with Akmor and Mornafa. But then if you just tank community in the Mornafa, it's not even like a thing that you have to care about. Unironically, the fight with the most tank damage is E5.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask our other guest here. Do you guys agree with Oryza? You guys think he's pretty much on the mark, or did he miss it?
Can you rephrase the question so I can kind of like cross-reference what he was saying to it?
Do you agree with Oryza?
No. I mean like the initial
first
question.
Oh, the initial question was the state of Final Fantasy XIV's healers and if they're in a good spot.
I mean, yeah, I think he hit it pretty much on the head.
Okay. Do you think that there's... So, I guess one of my main questions and concerns about how healers are, Momo, you have experience with this. You completed ultimate content without a healer in your party at all.
Okay, well, I think... Okay, to be fair, though, we have because we ran 8 tank... I'm assuming you're referring to the 8 tank UCOP thing.
Yeah.
Because of that... we had tank privilege for a lot of things, and especially because we had so many tanks, we could actually use our cooldowns to mitigate damage during the huge like damage incoming period phases. And because of that, we didn't really need a healer.
So you don't need DPS either, is what you're saying. I mean, when we start talking about it, I mean, the state of things where you could bring in 8 tanks and clear the hardest content in the game seems a little bit weird, right?
I think it might have been possible in Stormblood, maybe.
Okay.
So I don't want to like say like it's just like the Shadowbringers thing.
Okay.
UCOB is like special because it's one of the only ultimate fights we actually don't need a roll to complete it, whereas like in T, you need a healer for Asunas, and you need DPS LB and Uwu.
So you need them for technicalities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you could, or if there was no roll restrictions, I guarantee you Uwu and T could both be cleared with 8 tanks.
All right. That is a weird thing to think about. I mean, I guess it's not too horrible because you do have some healing within those roles, but at the same time, the healing's you're not really supposed to heal in those roles at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I wanted to make that a point because of how little healing really matters if people are doing everything correctly and people are going out there and finding these solutions for taking damage by bringing 8 tanks, I guess. And so something does feel off about the healer role within the game. I feel like there should be I don't know how to say it correctly, but I guess there should be a reasonable amount to where it's impossible to do it without someone who's dedicated to healing you. But since the healing requirements are so low, you could usually skim past these different barriers. So it makes you think most healers, you judge them by how much damage they're doing, not how much they're healing, right?
I don't know that I'd correlate those two together.
Okay,
Like your
okay.
first point makes sense, but I don't know that that is the causation of why we are so focused on DPS as a healer. I wouldn't put those as like this causes this.
Well, yeah, no, I agree it's one of those things where you're always trying to push whatever you can do to the max. And once you hit like optimal healing, that's DPS. There's nothing else you could do. You can't heal more and do more for the fight, right? You have to do damage.
Right.
So that makes sense. But the amount that you can DPS seems a little bit too high to me. I don't know. Like there should be the optimal healing should be much harder to achieve than it is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I mean, like, I guess Square Enix is also accounting for your party not being good at having to make up for them, right?
Yes, but I also feel like if you're in a Savage or an Ultimate fight, like you shouldn't need to account for people being that level of bad.
Okay, no, that's fair. That's fair. Especially in Ultimate.
Right.
Yep. You have healers that do 0 DPS in Savage. We've seen quite a few of those.
Yeah, but just because they exist doesn't mean they should.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
they shouldn't be possible.
I think you run into issues when those people are like hanging onto Yoshi P's word that they don't need healer DPS.
Yeah.
But then so if they design forcing them to do DPS, then like from their perspective, it's like, you know, counterintuitive or like backwards.
Mhm.
I don't know. I just have a lot of problems with that. What he said.
Okay, so with what Yoshi said about
Yeah, that he said that fights are designed without healer DPS in mind. It's just very clearly wrong.
Oh.
And I
When did he say that? 'Cause
Wait,
I
wait,
hear
wait,
that
wait.
quoted
I
so
actually have.
often.
Okay, to be fair,
Okay.
this was during Gordius,
Thank you.
and when we actually we mapped out like how good your DPS would have to be like Titan week 1 to like meet the Titan check week 1 without any healer DPS whatsoever, or like just one healer doing all the DPS and then another one doing 0, and it was nigh impossible to do week 1 without any healer DPS, or week 2, or probably week 3, because the DPS would have to pull numbers where they would have a shit ton of gear to compensate for that. So
Okay.
I think Yoshi P's probably changed his stance when it comes to something like that.
I think, yeah, it has evolved. See, and here's the thing with Yoshida. When he says something, the next expansion is not going to be exactly the same. His opinion and everything does morph, and that's a good thing. You know, it's good to not be, say one thing and have to stick to it. He does probably need to go back and refute what he said before, but he does change his opinion from time to time. Momo, did you want to answer Zeno's question real quick, by the way? About have you pulled another healer through Feather Rain since Ultimate Prong? No? Okay. But back on topic here. I think when it comes down to healing, what would you guys think if you had the perfect vision of what a healer should be in Final Fantasy XIV? What is that? What would be fun? What would be enjoyable? What should the healer for Final Fantasy XIV look like?
4.0 Astro.
Okay.
And the reason, okay, I'm not saying it because like obviously it could be something different than 4.0 Astro, but the reason 4.0 Astro was so good to heal was because actually this is going to go back to what we were talking about before the stream started, where they had a lot of creative healing output, right? You had so many options with your healing that you could extend Star's duration so that it would reach later points of the fight without actually having to hold the cooldown. You could extend regens, extend shields. You basically had so much creativity when it came to your healing toolkit. It was actually really fun to figure out like ways you could optimize that creativity. Like you could, for example, CU plus aspect of the benefit, and then time dilate the CU, CO the CU, and that CU is now like 30 plus seconds long instead of the initial like 15 or whatever it was.
So you would
That
say
aspect of the benefit is like 43 seconds long.
Is that the only time they got healer right? Is that what you would think?
No.
Okay.
Scholar and Stormbolt was also pretty good when it came to creativity because you could do stuff like eye for an eye deploy, deploy off your fairy, and then you just had Old Scholar just flowed really well when it came to healing because of the off GCD fairy. That wasn't actually off GCD, but you could weave it in between GCD, is what I mean.
Okay. All right, so Scholar and Astro had good points. What about White Mage? Was it ever in a good situation?
White Mage is weird because it's always had this identity of being like the GCD healer, and it's one of those things where it's got some really great points and it's got some really awful points that like I wish they would borrow more from the other healer ideas that they've had instead of just taking them from them and giving to the other healers, because they'll take things like how like White Mage's core kit, like their GCDs are, and give them to other healers, but they don't really kind of ever develop out much interest. Like I don't find lilies to be a very interesting mechanic as they are. They're kind of just, you get one every 30 seconds and you can use it somewhere. And it's one of those things where like in the previous expansions, like Heaven's Word, at least your DPS kit was interesting. Like Scholar had all of these dots. White Mage, still had its struggles with clipping and weaving, but you had this cool way to use Arrow 1 to do it. And you had things to manage to pay attention to, and they keep watering that down. So unlike the other two, or at least you have something to kind of engage yourself with. If you're not working on like the Giga Brain clipping and weaving, the White Mage is so not approachable for like new players. If you take out that part, it's boring, and I wish they would do more with it.
Okay.
It's actually funny you say that because I actually think that Lilies is probably one of the most, when it comes to creative healing now, Lilies is probably
it does
one of
both.
the only sources that you can actually manipulate now when it comes to optimizing on your damage and healing.
Okay.
It's one of these things where it's really rigid and really flexible at the same time, which totally makes sense. I promise.
Because every healing tool now is just you press it and it goes off, right? Like, I guess a really cool interaction that I was thinking of. One really cool thing I was actually thinking of last night when I was talking about that was imagine CO and time dilation now, right? And then imagine that interaction with a tool like horoscope. It would be really cool because you'd be able to either extend the duration of the first horoscope to where you have longer time to proc it, or you could use it on the proc horoscope so it lasts into a certain point of damage where you can actually use it and get it on cooldown faster.
Okay.
Stuff like that was cool, and now it's just gone because Square Enix either is making a new healer that is designed around extensions, which would be awesome, or they're just...
I mean, maybe. Do you guys feel... I guess we could go into that conversation if you wanted to, and discuss new healers and what Square Enix might be thinking from what you've seen in their changes so far. Do you think it's all like about extensions? Because that... All right. So... Are you talking about like how the cards extend it and some things? And I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of what you're saying because I'm such a shitty healer.
I think it's more like that the kit can interact with itself and change it without having to add more buttons.
Okay.
Like you could take something that you just applied as an Astro to your party, and you could do something with it even though it's already applied. So you could extend it on one person, you extend it on the whole party, or you could extend your cards. Like it made it so that like you wasn't just one button and done. You could like manipulate it after the fact or before the fact or plan ahead, and it gave more levels to the kit without adding more buttons to worry about how to do or how to learn.
Okay. So, do you guys feel like, Momo, could you expand just a little bit about what you mean by like you see these changes and you think it's going in that direction to where they're adding a new healer and they're trying to adjust the game to that?
I don't know. That's just me being hopeful. I personally, I don't know if they're going to do something like that. Like they could be taking like the time mage aspects away from Astro, and then they could be making a time mage healer, but they could also be making a chemist healer. But
everybody's on this chemist train because of the one thing in a main story quest.
I'm not. I do not want a chemist healer.
I don't think it'd be a bad idea. I just think people are confused and they think it's a new healer when it's not. It's just going to be a new limited job, guys. We're just getting a new limited job, which is going to be chemist.
You already have the job. It's alchemist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have it as alchemist, but they're going to throw in where you throw potions and you do damage, or you throw potions and you heal, or you throw potions and it does different effects. You have so many things you could do with potions. It's just going to be a limited job. It's Blue Mage 2.
Please no.
That's all.
I really don't want a chemist healer.
I think the issue with the chemist healer is that like it could be cool. Like imagine a healer that's like I don't know, like ninja for example, right? Where you have to mix your potions and the potions are like kind of like mudras in a sense, or like dance whatever dancer dances whatever they're called. I don't know what they're called. Steps, yeah. Something like that. The issue with that though would be like, let's say you're doing like you mix like a 3-step thing or 2-step thing and you fuck it up, right? What are you gonna do? Because now you just either screwed yourself and the party just wiped because you messed up your mix, or like how would they balance that? And I don't know if they could. I think if we were just to get like a chemist or something, it would be something where it's just like where everything is now, where it's like one and done. You know, you press the GCD or off GCD, boom, healing goes out. Because that's how everything is pretty much nowadays. There's really no.
It is what sucks.
Too much like thinking when it comes, like even Star, where you just place it down and then like even, that's not even too much thinking when it comes to actually using the healing part of it.
I mean, so I guess we could go back to the design of making healers and everything in Final Fantasy XIV. They've simplified it a good bit. It used to be a little bit more complicated. Do you feel like that's the right direction to take? They're just going to keep simplifying healers until we get to a point where they press one button to heal, press one button to DPS, and that's it? I don't know what is going on with healers right now, because they want to make the game so approachable to everyone to play. They want more people to play, and the way to do that is to make things easier. But at the same time, making things not difficult makes it to where people don't find it a challenging game and may not continue playing it. I don't know.
I feel like there's two parts to why they're not difficult anymore, and part of that was just because they kind of kept trying to iterate on what they had before and just had these things that they were having such a hard time balancing that they were just like, let's just strip it all out. We'll go back to something simple, and we'll go from there.
They did that with PvP, yeah.
And like everything's homogenized now. Like it's on the one hand, like that makes it really approachable for somebody starting the game because it's something they can pick up and understand. But like it's one of those things where you've sucked so much out of it. It's like, okay, the balance is a lot better now. Like it's a lot better this expansion than it was last expansion. Other changes, some small changes notwithstanding, but like overall, the general numbers are actually pretty decent balance wise. But they've done it at the expense of like what feels like our soul. And whenever you have something that somebody has played one way and then you give them a new version of it, they're always going to compare it to the past version. Like if you went out of the gate with like just these healers and that's how it was at like 2.0, people wouldn't be like so scandalous about it. But because we had something that was really engaging at one point and they've stripped all of that out, we feel like jaded, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like hopefully, now that they've kind of gotten us back to this kind of baseline, maybe next expansion, they can start adding things back in where your core kit is still simple and understandable and usable. Like say, you pay no attention to anything new, you could still pick it up and understand it. But hopefully you've got these tools that you can still bring it to the next level without degrading from simplicity that still makes it pick up and grabbable and playable. At least that's what I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the big issue, I think, kind of tracing back to the original question, was that like healing the way healers are actually isn't an issue, right? Mm-hmm. The issue comes from there not actually being any healing in the fights. The issue is the fight design, not the healing design.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot.
If healing, like if fights were actually like interesting to heal or harder to heal, there's more outgoing damage, the healers actually wouldn't feel as bad as they do. And like that's where the biggest issue comes in, where you're having to not do anything. You have this huge bloated toolkit, so many options to use to heal, but you don't have to use them because the fight just doesn't warrant it.
Okay, so I mean, is that something where we should take away? Would we need to alter other jobs and make them less sturdy? Like tanks, make it a little bit harder for them to, absorb this damage and make that role go back to the healers where they have to do things to prevent the damage? Or
I don't think there's a problem with what the other tanks or other like roles can do. I think it's just like, I think even if you compare the outgoing healing, like the amount of outgoing damage in like Stormblood encounters to Shadowbringers encounters is just distinctly less. Even if you compare like Titan, like Eden Titan to Eden Shiva, or like that whole tier. It just feels like it's less this tier than it was last tier, which is like weird and bad. Yeah, when we're talking about job designs, like you can't look at healer kits in a vacuum. It just doesn't work because how they interact with fights is so important. And like I think a lot of people like to dunk on Scholar right now, like myself included, because Scholar is just such a pain to play and it feels awful because everything you do is a DPS loss. Like Astro's just better than you. Like I don't know, it just like it feels bad, but like I actually think Scholar would be a really engaging and fun job if you had to utilize all your tools. Because I think Scholar has a lot of cool tools that you can like use. Like I think like thinking about your fairy and like Seraph and like when like your recitation, spread low, soil, like all your different aether flow and optimizing that is actually fairly enjoyable. But the problem is if it's not needed and you use all 3 aether flow on energy drain every time, it's like this really sucks. And like you just don't use things because you don't need to use things.
So I guess my question in that then is, would you need to use them if you were in a casual group or in a bad group and you needed to kind of carry a little bit as a healer?
That's depending on your skill, I would assume, right?
I think it also depends. Like there's so much variance there. Like when I'm PF, like PFing is like almost that, right? So like
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
So I play Scar on PF, it's like, oh shit, like a bunch of people are dying. Now I have to Seraph and like cover for my co-healer, and like, oh no, like my co-healer died before Akmor, and I'm gonna Seraph and like add the spread low here and remove this energy drain, like react. Those times are actually really fun, and one of the reasons I really like healing PF is actually because of that. Because you actually end up having to use your tools when people are dumb, and you might be able to carry them across the finish line, which is fairly enjoyable. So yeah, like maybe if you're like in a less skilled group, you do that, but that's relying on the fact that you're better than the rest of your like less skilled group. If like your whole group is like less skilled, then like it kind of becomes moot. Like if you are like equal as the rest of the group.
Okay.
Also depends a bit on the fight too, because for some mechanics, like there's no recovery. Like if somebody messes up Light Rampant, like you can't, it doesn't matter how good of a healer you are, you can't fix that. And I feel like a lot of mechanics have started going this way where like it's, the Fury's 14-1 with the things you have to knock down in 5S. Like you can't fix that. If people are bad at it, you're wiping there. Like there's no amount of healing you can fix that. So I don't mind having those kind of mechanics as like a general practice, but if that's the only thing that like is making the difference between like how you're engaging with your healing kit, because like somebody eating an AoE like something they're not supposed to hit, like it's not that hard to recover from. So I feel like we're in this dichotomy where we're in the middle. It's like, okay, either you need to make healing more engaging or our DPS rotation more engaging. But right now, neither are. So it's like pick one. Yeah. Like I don't care which, but like pick one so that I'm not bored.
So I'm going to be honest. If I had to pick one, I would think DPS would be the one that you would go with, because that is the reason why I say that is because it will mean that once you're like really good, then you're entering into this engaging part of the class and the job and everything else. Once your group is good and they're doing everything, you're not depending on people to mess up for you to have fun. So, like, if everyone's doing everything perfectly, you lose all the different things that you could be doing. Like you were saying, Oryza, PF is fun because people can mess up. You don't get that in your static group, though.
But I think I have the most enjoyment when the healing kit's more engaging. I mean, obviously, we can't make the DPS kit more engaging and see what that's like, because it's just what it is. We can't do anything about that. But, like, when you heal a fight, like, for me, when I healed Ultima Weapon the first time and, like, doing Annihilation, which is, like, what I found to be one of the more difficult healer mechanics I've done, simply because, like, the healers are spread out and, like, you have different roles, like, 50-50. Figuring out how to heal that was actually really fun to me. And then, like, even what I figured out was definitely, how do you put it? Like, it was rudimental, and it was like I basically forced it to work. It wasn't optimal at all. Like, it was just like, oh, I'm just gonna make sure we all live so we can just kill this boss. But then, like, so even on farm, like, I would iterate through that and like try to optimize my healing tools there, and that's actually really enjoyable. Of course, like, if the DPS kit were also more engaging, and then you'd have to think about both sides, it'd probably be even better. Like, you want both. But I think if I were to choose one, I would actually make the healing more interesting.
Okay. But if you make it... I guess the issue that comes into play with that is if you make it too confusing or too interesting, it starts to limit how many people can succeed at healing, right?
Well, it's like to make your DPS, like the healer side of DPS or DPS side of healing,
Mhm.
more interesting, you have to change the kit, right? Like you have to do something more interesting with the kit than just one nuke and one dot and maybe like one other pretty skill. But like for the healing kit to be more interesting, you don't necessarily have to change your kit. You need to change the fights. So like
Okay.
I think I know this is something we were going to talk about at one point, but like my favorite healer phase mechanic, whatever you want to call it, of any fight is probably nail phase in Ukop. Sorry, I talk with my hands a lot. And I'm like suddenly seeing myself.
It's okay. It's like a dance. It's fine. No.
So like, but the nail phase in Ukop, because you don't know what order you're gonna get the quotes in, you can't necessarily say, okay, I'm gonna use this cooldown here and not here. And I really like the fact that you have to kind of pay attention and change how you're using your kit based on that. And I think that's one of those examples where if they did more phases like that, where you could engage with what's happening to change how you're using your kit, you could make healing more interesting and more engaging without having to like change the kit, just change the fights, because the fights are kind of just a snooze fest for healers, other than like fresh prog or like Oryza said, party finding with, you know, bad people.
I mean, to be devil's advocate there too, isn't their balance seen in how they make jobs focused on fresh prog and not farming?
I feel like you can do both. I feel like it's not one or the other. Like, because when it comes down to fresh prog, you always go back to like your ready to grab assets, which are like just like your GCD heals. That's why, you know, some Astro Scholar might be better in some fights overall for DPS, but people will gravitate towards White Mage because it's got a big dick GCD heal and it doesn't take any thought to use it. So I feel like you can do both. Like, I feel like it's not one or the other.
Okay.
I want to answer Zep's question.
Oh, okay. That's a good topic to go into. Let's go. Yeah.
That's a good question.
I see a lot of people in chat talking about how actually that, you know, how if you make healing harder, then you're kind of alienating the player base. The issue is that you take a fight like Warrior of Light, right? And that fight is honestly like, if you just look like at the HPS compared to that into Savage, Warrior of Light actually requires more healing than most of the Savage fights we've had, which is like kind of unacceptable when you're coming from like an extreme fight, because extreme is supposed to be a difficulty lower than Savage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why is it acceptable for that extreme fights to have more healing required than a Savage fight? I don't think we're trying to like say like, oh, make healing in the Savage fight super hard, or like if you fuck up once you wipe. That's not what we're trying to say. We're just saying that.
Yeah, it's not the amount. It's how you're applying your healing to it.
Yeah. And then cycling into like Zep's question about what do you suggest for SE to change? Movement mechanics are like at this point probably like one of the only way to make healers healing hard in some aspects, like Hello World, right? Annihilation, like Ori said. There's like some choreography when it comes to stuff like that. And you can also do something where there's RNG mechanics, right? So one of the biggest flaws right now is that you can kind of calculate when to place your stuff and do every single pull, and it's going to heal for the exact same amount. Whereas like Warrior of Light actually excels in this regard, where the patterns are completely random, so you have to adjust your toolkit based on which patterns you get.
Okay, so you're voting movement-based mechanics for healers. Make healers have to move around.
Or RNG.
Do you think that maybe putting them in a cage and making them DPS is something that is they should do, like in Midas?
No, I think cage mechanics are fucking stupid.
Like, healer cage in Midas in DPS. You stood in the corner.
No, I remember healers had to go into A7S and do the magical DPS because
Wasn't that the caster jail and you just put the healer in it?
Yeah, you put the
The
healer
way you
in
were
it.
supposed to do it, the proper healer jail, you just sat in the corner. You could put the healer in a different jail, but
I remember doing that and then having to go in there and do the DPS. The magical DPS one, I thought that was pretty funny.
Whoever designed the jail mechanic can just stop. Thank you. If you're listening to this, please never like who think it's like, just look at Titan, for example. Who think it's fun getting jailed for 30 plus seconds and doing nothing? I remember fucking watching Xeno stream, him doing Susano. Oh man. Dude, whoever made the Susanoo mechanic too, I'm pretty sure it's the same exact person.
Yeah.
That shit is not fun. Cut it out.
Yeah, no, they're like, hey, take a break for a little bit. I mean, it's not a big deal. You can rest. You can
Yeah, at least
stretch.
at least let you hit your own jail, right? That would be like kind of
trying
like
to break out
different,
from
but
the
like
inside. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
but being stuck and being able to do nothing is such a stupid and boring healer mechanic.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's always the
Sorry.
healers. Like, very
it's all right.
rarely is it just like anybody.
I mean, it's one of those things. Like, it's just something. It's another mechanic to do. I mean, what mechanics could they introduce that would be enjoyable for healers, besides just moving around?
Like single specific mechanics.
Just anything you could think of that would be like, hey, if they started doing this for a mechanic that healers had to deal with, this would be a lot more fun. Besides just, I guess, healing.
I think anything that might be like, I know you don't want to go overboard with the RNG, but anything that kind of just is an RNG, like how you can approach it. So like, say you've got, 2 or 3 options that could show up in RNG, but you want to make them not all have the same response. Because if it's an RNG, which mechanic you get, but they all can just be solved with a Medica 2 or, Celestial Opposition, like that's not, it doesn't matter because what order you get them in because you're doing the same thing. But if you give me something that like, this one you can DPS during, this one needs heavy cooldowns or something, then you can at least like have to flex and think ahead and at least be a little bit more engaging. And RNG at least keeps you on your toes where, sitting in a jail, you literally can fall asleep.
Like, I think like if you say in addition to movement, there are a few I can't say like there's like a specific mechanic because I feel like interactive healing is almost always when multiple mechanics come together. When it's just one specific thing, it's always just like, well, you react to one specific thing with one specific thing, which is like not very interesting. But like in addition to movement, it's like the party's spread out, so you can't soil them. So you can't even like sucker depending. Like this is what Hello World was really good at. Everyone was like super spread out, so you had to you can't just stand in the middle and spam Medica. It just doesn't work. Another way is to have damage variance between different members. So again, Hello World did this where the solos. It's like there was like a tank with a solo stack, and there's a DPS who took 2 stacks in a row. So you have to pay attention to specific people.
Mm-hmm.
And most healer toolkits are just like AoE. What makes them really strong is that like you just heal everybody a bunch. But like if a bunch of people are taking different amounts of damage at different times, you can't do that. So you actually have to pay attention to specific people and like have specific strategies. Like if I remember correctly, there's like what my Astro did back then was like a time dilation aspect to benefit on the short stack or something like that.
Yeah.
There was one other thing that you could do that I don't. Oh, it was just damage variance within hits. So like, I mean, I didn't heal during Stormblood, so maybe this is controversial. I don't know what people like healers back then actually thought about it, but like boss autos, being able to crit was like it basically just added. I guess it's almost an RNG element, where like you basically it becomes a lot harder to say like, oh, I only just need this one specific heal here because of the amount of variance, like with crit. That like you might have to do an emergency heal or like something extra if you got unlucky, I guess. Which maybe that just feels bad. Like I don't actually know how that felt to play with because I didn't play back then.
Actually, when optimizing, you actually. So I like crits. I think crit autos just be in the game. But when you're optimizing healing back then, you actually pretended the tanks had a lower HP than they had, right? That way they had a safety net because they got crit autoed. Because you would never let the tanks be in a range where a crit auto would kill them. You would always have to optimize around like the point
worst
where
case
like
scenario.
yeah, like you would just like pretend they had 10k less HP, right? Or 10k more HP, I guess would be the
If they took 10k more
example.
damage,
yeah.
yeah.
So you would just optimize around that. Like same thing with the Twintani was actually pretty brutal for crit autos. And sometimes there would be a buster. It was the second death sentence, I believe, where if they got crit autoed, they would die.
Yeah.
So you would just pretend that they had 10k less HP than they did, and you would just have to heal them there if they got under that like threshold.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, I actually did remember one healing mechanic I did like, and this is like the meme, I guess, but I actually liked White Hole from E4 or O4. White Hole specifically, not the other ones.
Go
not
on,
the other
bro,
ones.
do it.
Specifically White Hole.
Could you
because,
say exactly what Whitehole did? Just because I barely remember Whitehole.
Okay. Yeah, White Hole was a mechanic that XF casted a few times throughout the fight, and basically you had to be 100% health by the time the cast part ended, or else if you were under 50, you would die, and if you were between 50 and 100, you get petrified. Which
Okay,
sucked
now I
a
remember.
lot.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So what made white hole interesting to me was that in between each white hole, there was like 3 or 4 instances of damage, and they often were followed or um, you know, paired in such a way that you couldn't easily just instantly heal them. So X-Death, for example, his second white hole, it was like a knockback and then a stack, and then you had to run around, and then it was 3 flares. And then he also did a random mechanic, and then he knocked you back with damage, and then he white holed. So all of that, like you can't be in the middle to heal most of the time. You have to do a lot of movement because you have to like go to him for the knockback, and you get knockback, you have to run back in. Like flares, you can't be in the middle to heal them because there's a giant head in the middle that would kill you, I think. And you have to run around the side too. So it was actually a lot about planning your mitigations and your instant heals and stuff like that, all for the effort of like making sure it was easier to be max health by the time white hole happened, which is actually somewhat engaging, and you have to think about your tools. Every iteration of white hole since then, it's been like, oh, you are now 1 HP. Now spam cure 3. Now you're full health. And it's like, that's it. So like I really hate every other iteration after that. But XF never set you to 1 HP. He only just did like normal damaging mechanics, and then eventually, and like at specific points, check to make sure you're full HP. So you have to really think about like your mitigations in between.
Okay.
It's actually something I like to call intelligent healing, because like mechanics like God Kefka, where it just drops you to 1 HP and you have to heal full, that's not intelligent healing. J-Waves isn't intelligent healing because it's just spamming heals. The difference between white hole and those mechanics is that you can plan and you can shift cooldowns around to make it easier at some parts. Like Ori was saying, you can either mitigate the previous hits so that you can get topped off earlier. Like mechanics like that are things that are cool because you can manipulate around the fact that it's not just dropping you to 1 HP and then you have to spam cure or whatever to get topped off.
So they remove the cool and intelligent parts of healing so far from fight design. All right. Levy, what were you saying? Sorry.
No, it's fine. It just the conversation reminded me. It was, I think, Chaos, where you would get that sludge debuff that actually did a lot of damage, but it was only at half the party, and it like also nerfed your healing output. And that one was another mechanic I liked because you kind of had to be forth thinking about how you're going to heal through it or mitigate for it. I wish it was a bit more engaging. It wasn't as fleshed out as it could have been, but it was also a first tier savage of a floor of a set. Sorry, first floor. I can't talk. First floor of a tier.
Don't worry, I can never talk, so it's fine.
But it was a cool mechanic because if it had been tuned up a little bit more, you wouldn't just be able to cure 3 through it because your GCDs were nerfed because of the debuff you had. So you had to figure out what other tools in your kit could you use to apply to this. And I like that because it took out your easy answer and your carry me please answer, and you had to actually think more about what you were doing.
Okay.
This is kind of off topic, but I meant to say this earlier when we were talking about like how to make healing interesting. One thing actually that is really cool that I'm actually kind of annoyed thinking about it now that they didn't bring back was Leviathan's debuff in Extreme. How your healing range actually got smaller the more you heal the tank. That was actually kind of cool.
That was
interesting. And they could actually incorporate that into a Savage fight in some aspect, I would assume.
That was a long time ago.
Able to do something like that. Yeah.
They might bring it back. I mean, we do have insane difficulty, right? So
Unreal?
Or Unreal. Is it Unreal? Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying like an actual like. Well, it wouldn't work now because I'm pretty sure it didn't proc up off GCDs. It was only GCD heals that procced it, so they'd have to change it if they were to do something cool with it. But that was a cool mechanic that could make healing interesting if they had designed it right.
I loved that fight, by the way. That was around the time that I was actually starting to get into the game. They released that. And I remember just falling off the side of it by the tilting mechanic of the platform and everything. And I was like, man, this is the best fight. Then I talked to anyone else. They're like, I hated that fight. It was the worst fight I've ever played. I never want to do that fight again. I'm like, come on, man. Why not? It was fun, right?
Okay.
I mean, I'm with you. It's one of my favorite fights is Bismarck EX, and I get so much hate for that. Because it's different. Like, the reason why I like it is because it's so different. So I'm with you on that. Like,
Acme removal, the fight. Yeah. I remember that one.
Everybody's going to hate me.
There are 2 more mechanics I actually remember that I liked healing. One of them is Earth and Fury from Titan Savage.
That was good, yeah.
Because the dot, but specifically phase 3, because the dot was really interesting when you had to run around in a circle and also deal with auto attack damage and stack damage. I'm a big fan of like auto attack damage while mechanics are happening, and dots are one of the easiest ways to do it. There's like a limitation with like, I don't know, maybe the engine in this game where like whenever the boss is casting, it's not doing anything else. So like you can make a boss cast a lot of raid wides, but then it won't auto attack. Or like Shiva does a lot of mechanics consecutively, but because of that, she doesn't auto attack. And like then tank damage gets low. So it becomes like this like almost a trade where you have to choose one or the other. But if you do something like Eden, like Titan, where there's like a big Titan and a small Titan, and the small Titan's auto attacking while the big Titan's doing raid wides and other garbage, then like you have to do mechanics and think about auto attack damage at the same time, which was engaging. The other mechanic I actually kind of liked was the ads phase in Shiva. Actually, in specifically in week 1, as like time went on, it got a lot shittier. But early on, like having to plan how your DPS were hitting the lightnings, and also because the phase, like at least to me in early blind prog, felt really tight. I think one thing that DPS checks do a lot for healers, like the tighter DPS check is, the more you feel like you're pushed to optimize heals really quickly in prog. So like there's like this, I don't know how to put it, but like the tighter they make a DPS check, like the more engaging healing becomes because you're just forced to be more optimal than you otherwise would have to be.
Have you ever done A6 ads? Or A6 or A3 ads?
I mean, like I did them in my eye level, which I know is not the same.
I
it's
did
not the
A6.
same. A6 is though. I think A6 was like.
I loved A6.
Was
That's just
insane.
4 different bosses. I mean, it wasn't really just
No.
ads.
Like the
ball
ads phase that I'm thinking of is the ball phase. Yeah.
And brawler, yeah.
Yeah, that's like the what I compare like what they can do with Shiva and stuff. Like when people like say like they like Shiva ads phase, like it was cool week 1, but like then I like think of like the stuff they've done in the past where like they've done cooler stuff and better stuff. I'm just like, oh, well, this could have been better.
A6, like that particular phase had so many different elements stacked on top of each other. I really like that one.
They haven't really done anything close to like A6 since they did it A6, I think, right?
Nope.
No.
I think the closest thing we've got in a long time is actually the Eden, like the Shiva one, where it's like different ads do different things and they're trying to reach the center and all that.
That's actually another thing I kind of. So healers actually have an ability called Repose Still, which puts things to sleep. So it would be pretty interesting if they actually incorporated that into like raids in some aspect, because like I'm a really big fan of CC. Like I'm a really big fan overall of like environmental, like interacting with the environment and stuff. Like I loved A5, like having to do the puddles. Like A9 was really cool, like dropping the bombs on the ads and then bringing it to a platform. But like one thing they really don't do is like CC mechanics.
They do it in Shiva, right, during the ads phase.
I mean, that was that's. I mean, they did, right? Yeah, that was the thing.
Right.
But like, I don't really. It's not really like a huge part of the fight.
Right.
And the healers don't really even do anything in that. They kind of just grab the tether and heal. But like, yeah, like back before, like you'd be able to do stuff like what was it? Was it Stone 1, I believe?
Yep.
Put
Had the
a
heavy.
slow on a target, and you'd actually use that in A6 and T5 and
Used it in 7
A8?
too if you were helping to slow the
oh
cat
yeah,
hurt.
the heart. Yeah, like stuff like that was kind of cool in my opinion. So I really kind of wish they would like incorporate CC elements into from healers into the fights, even though like don't really have too much now. They could always add more, right? They could always add like a slow back or something. I don't know.
So, just out of curiosity, adding more than just healing and DPSing, would you think that maybe if they start to add more utility that healers had to play a part in these fights, like the slowing and CC and everything, but also maybe, I don't know, buffs to their party members, things that they could do to make the fight better for them? Like Astro used to buff their party. It turned into just whoever can get the balance card, and that was the main focus of Astro, and there's been all this balance ever since it came out. But do you think that all healers should have some sort of utility that they apply to their party?
If it's engaging.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, every healer has their own utility, right? Like Scholar or White Mage's utility, and in the sense is that it has really high raw healing.
I mean, yeah.
Unless you mean like utility
It
as in,
has
like
high personal damage.
Like other things,
Yeah,
like things that are out
Like-
there that's not just the core focus of the job, like shielding and stuff
Like
like that. Is
buffs.
I mean, like buffs is what I'm talking about. Things that they can
Okay.
engage that are not just directly keeping people alive,
Well-
but support.
but like
Are you
actually
talking about, like-
support and not just like HP restore
Yeah,
support.
yeah.
Like chain?
Chain.
Is that like what you like something like that? Because I don't think that's good personally.
like
Um,
I'm
It's not
thinking more
engaging.
like how Astro was at first, where it was like you could change cards, and that was you had 6 different options, and then maybe I need to give people TP at this point. Oh, and we saw how that morphed into something a little bit differently. I mean, they could have changed it to not be just the 3 different cards and 3 different effects, really, and made it more to where the healers had to focus on what else they could do besides healing their party to help out. And right now, it's just DPS, but if they had other things to buff up the party members, I think it would be interesting, or repair certain situations. Like you were saying, CC could play a big part into that as well as that other thing they could do. Just something that's not focusing on damaging directly to the enemies and something that's not focused directly on healing and keeping people alive.
So I'm struggling to think of good examples of that other than mana restoration in the game because they got rid of TP. Damage reduction is the same. Is another roundabout way of healing. A lot of other
Give
things
everyone
that have just
sprint. I
been
don't
roundabout
know.
wave damage.
Well, the
Yes,
big one that they used to have that they got rid of across the board with this X-Pack was GCD speed. Like Arrow was gone. All the ones that you could apply to your party that were gone. I think the only like haste similar buffs that still exist are White Mage has one, and I think Black Mage I'm not really familiar with Black Mage, but presence of mind. But that was one of the ones I think was really interesting because you could figure out how to apply it, and some classes hated it, and I think that's why they got rid of it. But to me, that was a really nice, engaging way to buff the party where it's not just here's 10% damage, here's 4% damage. It was actually like, oh, this is actually going to change how you interact with your kit. But I get why there's issues with that, but I would like to see something along those lines that are kind of engaging it in a way that's not just here's 20% damage. We're sorry we screwed up Astro again.
It was kind of funny putting the GCD speed on people and I think messing up their rotations and completely ruined everything that they had scripted out for the fight.
I was a machinist
It
main.
was
Frosty,
fun.
please don't do this to
I
me.
was a machinist main at beginning of Heaven's Word.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it.
I may have stuck some on my Dragoons when they were being snippy.
would Eye for an Eye be kind of classified as what you're talking about?
Well, I mean, yeah, you would debuff. You I think that's applying it to the
Okay, I
boss,
mean-
and then yeah.
Okay, yeah, there's some cool stuff like that. Like, I mean, I guess like extensions would also kind of fall into that category. But like Eye for an Eye was a really cool tool. Too bad it only procced on physical damage, but
Yeah.
like there was, especially in Ultimates, I think was where it shined the most. And in Ultimates, it was a really good tool. Once you could
RNG
bring 10 skills at least.
RNG healing like actions could be really cool, but it depends how they implement them because White Mage used to have a really garbage trait that was like if your cure 2 crit, then you had a 25% chance to get 5 seconds off Azai's and I think it was Asylum. And like because it was like on top of your crit chance, it was like actually a 4% chance of proccing. It was the most garbage thing. But if they did it in a not garbage way where like you weren't guaranteed it but you could expect to happen sometimes, it could make you interact with more with like if it saved you with DCD heal here that you otherwise had planned, or if you had to apply something differently, you could at least see that as a way to engage with your kit if they do it in a not garbage implementation.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a game developer, and I don't play healer enough to really be able to throw too much of opinion out there. I just feel like I hear a lot from what other people say, and I know one thing that would be interesting is that if there was just more to healing than there is right now, and
Yeah.
I was thinking support being a support role, because a lot of people who play healer don't play healer coming in thinking I'm going to do damage. That's just not what people who traditionally play MMOs think. They think I'm going to come in and I'm going to heal and be a support player. I'm going to support my team, and that's the role I want to play. But instead, they come into Final Fantasy 14, and then they become really good at optimize how I heal, then DPS, and that's what it turns into. And I mean, it's a good. It's a cool thing. It's actually it's a different way of looking at healing, and I think a lot of people do like it. Just it's not what you're expecting when you come in and you start the role from a new player
I
standpoint.
think a lot of people actually forget that Asylum is a utility skill. So is Fey Illumination. No, I mean it is, right? It's the sense that it increases your healing by or increases every healing ability in the game by 10% if you're standing inside of it. And in some cases, like for example, when we were optimizing E1, that was something we actually took advantage of. So I mean that's something like a lot of people actually forget because of like how niche it is. But like there's some cool interactions, especially if you're running White Mage Scholar. White Mage Asher, you kind of just let the Asher do all the work. But like a White Mage Scholar comp, you kind of have to do a little bit more optimization because you don't really have that free healing. And that's where like that Asylum comes in. And it's the same thing with Fey Illumination, right? Fey Illumination also boosts your GCD healing. And in some cases that can be very good, like for ultimates where you are doing a lot of GCD heals in certain parts of the fight.
Okay.
I guess my question, going off of what Frosty was saying, was, is this a game where you can have a support role that provides support that isn't just here's damage up and here's, impacts to your healing? Like, can we provide support in any other way besides those two kind of dichotomies? And I'm not sure that the framework is there for it. I'm not sure if it's something that can be, every time they've tried to do a little bit of it, they end up taking it away later. So I don't know if it's something that could be done, but I'd definitely like to see it because it'd be a lot more interesting.
Well, we've seen what happened to Astro. I mean, that's like the big example of that. But I mean, if they would have applied it a little bit differently, to where all the cards actually maybe meant something more than hopefully I get balance, then it would have been great. But the game just isn't balanced in a way to make each one of those different effects have the same difference, or have the same power that you're looking for with the balance card. And so they had to change it up a lot. I mean, Astro used to be the best. Like, I think when they first released Astro, a lot of people complained about it. And then when they put it into, like, the Midas tier, I think is when it hit, like, its solid point. Like, it was actually kind of fun to the play. And it wasn't, like, too bad. It wasn't too overpowered. But then again, I could be just remembering that wrong.
No, that's about right.
So that'd be a good point. Good time to cycle into the question of, can healing actually evolve in this game, or is everything just always going to be a regen or shield healer?
Yeah, that's going to be that's a good question actually. So take it away, Momo. What do you think about that?
Whoa! Oh, okay.
No, all right. You know what, Oryza, I'm going to put it on you. Can the game evolve the way it's healing right now, outside of its two shield and regen?
I'm gonna be real Frosty. When I looked at the sheet and I saw that question, I was like, "This is the hardest fucking question on the whole sheet." It's really hard to answer. Like, I saw this and I was like, "Dude, are we getting paid for this? Like, is this my job now?"
Yeah.
Like, can we be a job designer for Square Enix? Just hire me, Yoshi P, if I can come up with something good. Because, like, I don't know, this is not our jobs.
I mean, if you can solve Blitzball, I think they would hire you. But I mean, healing is one of those things. It's been what the game has been. It was perfect back in ARR when it was just shield healer and pure healer, right? And that's what it was. And then they introduced the third one, and they're like, okay, let's figure out what the fuck we're doing. And they've been trying to figure that out since they introduced Astro, and they just haven't done it. I don't believe. Even now, we're not really where they want to be. It's not balanced properly, right?
No.
It's better, but it's not. No.
Yeah, it's not great. The way I view it generally is that basically the requirement is that, at least from how I imagine the dev team sees it, is that you need a healer that has shields in any fight. But I also think that you can just give every healer access to shields and then have them be differentiated from each other in other ways.
Like what?
I mean, a lot of people like to say melee healer, which I don't think would work very well with how mechanics are currently designed, but like that is an option, right? You can do like a healer that focuses on ground AoE heals. You like, I think a healer's niche, or like it's how you like view it differently and how it's differentiated from other healers, doesn't have to be its kit itself, but like how it performs those heals, or like maybe it does something else. Like, I mean, Astro had the whole time aesthetic, which just feels different, right? It's just with more, like, people like to say Astro is like a planning healer, and Scholar you can play a lot more reactively. Scholar is like the off GCD healer, and White Mage is like the GCD healer. They're already like differentiated in those ways that has nothing to do with regen or shield. And I feel like you can lean into that more.
I think Momo was talking about it earlier that, one potential for design, still don't want it to be chemist, but you could still do a combo-based healer and have it so that and you could have it so that, like, you do, I don't know if you want to call them step signatures, whatever they are. If they had made Dancer healer, you could have it be like, this combination of steps gives you, this buff to your party. This combination of steps gives, the heal. And if you fuck it up, then you just kind of get like a lower potency base heal. Or maybe, if you do it right, you get a heal that has a little bit of damage attached. But if you mess it up, you just still get the heal. You just don't get the damage. So you're still performing like safety wise for the team, but you're just doing it like, less optimally. I feel like there's ways you could make the gameplay of each different, like Oryza was saying, without having to deal with this dichotomy of, if everybody just had a boring shield and a boring raw heal, then you can give them more interesting parts with like the actual gameplay part instead of just everybody's got one dot, everybody's got one nuke. Spam these, and you got a couple other things to do.
It's kind of dude, I remember when they first released the information that Dancer is going to be a range DPS. Oh, people were so mad, but I feel like people weren't really thinking logically when it came to that, because like if they were to release a healer and on Shadowbringers, it would have probably been just another copy paste White Mage or Scholar in some aspects. It probably wouldn't have been original. And honestly, the next healer, it's not going to be good. I don't think it's going to be original. And the reason I don't think it's going to be original is because Square Enix is really heavily biased when it comes to balancing their game. And if they were to make a healer that had a gimmick, like let's say Chemist, for example, is like the shaman healer from, I think it's Shaman from WoW, where they have those totems and they can place them on the ground. Yeah. Let's say Chemist is like that, where they have different turrets, they do different effects, and you can place them on the ground. But what if a fight isn't good for that kind of healer? Now that healer is isolated, or they have to start designing fights around that one healer to where it's never isolated, and either the fight is working for that healer more than, or it's better for that healer more than others, or the other healers just kind of just fill the role fine. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like the issue I think that Square Enix has put themselves in, to where like they kind of did with tanks in a sense too, where they kind of like homogenize them a little bit, though I still think tanks have their own identity in some aspects. But it's kind of the same, where I don't think healers will ever be super original, even though we want them to be, just because of the balancing aspect of it. Like, just look at WoW, right? Some healers are dog shit when it comes to different patches.
I mean, should Square Enix just be okay with that? And just that there's just going to be some jobs that just aren't as good as the other ones? They can still clear content, but they're never going to be the best?
You can go ahead.
No, I was going to say, that's totally subjective, right? Some people like balance, some people want more interesting stuff. I think for the health of the game, balance is probably the best course to take.
The only reason I say that is because there are people who play the game because they want to play a Dark Knight or they want to play a White Mage, and they're not going to switch. And if they find out that their job is the weakest, they're less inclined to want to keep playing. At least with population. Go ahead.
It's like my selfish opinion is, for a game that likes to say they can play every job on every character, they don't make that a thing that matters at all in the whole game. And I really feel like it'd be much more interesting if like you were more encouraged to play multiple healers and choose what you feel like is better for, like, having to make the choice of like your comp going into a fight based on what the fight entails. I think is really interesting. But I know people have very strong identities at their job, so like, that's more of a selfish thing for me, because I literally do not care what job I'm playing most of the time. So I care more about the fights. So like I think it's much more interesting to think about what's optimal for the fight, and rather have them be like different. And I actually think that like Momo touched on this with the tanks. Like for me, for Prog, like, whenever I think about Prog, like Paladin's like a must take just because Paladin's really fucking good. But like when I think about Warrior, Dark Knight, and Gunbreaker, I think they all bring somewhat, like, they're pretty homogenized, like, to be fair, but they also do bring like somewhat unique strengths, like Dark Knight's TVN, like Warrior self-healing, and plus like Shake It Off, right? The other tanks don't have a party shield, like that I do consider when I'm thinking about the fight, especially like, well, in blind Prog you can't really think about that, but like, you know, if you're probably not blind, like, you know, you're probably ultra for the first time, you think about like what's the best comp for this. I think thinking through that is a really fun exercise, and I actually feel that way about casters too, because the 3 casters are very different from each other and like what they bring and like damage versus utility. But healers are lacking that, and I mean, so are physical range, but that's a whole other topic of how they're bad. So
You gonna come on that show?
I was a physical range main for 2 years, so there's a reason I don't play it anymore.
So
I don't know. I'm personally in the camp where if they're going to stick with this, everybody should be able to do every fight thing. Then what ends up being the most balanced or the best per patch just needs to rotate. If they're going to stick with like they're never going to isolate one class, then they at least need to mix it up so that you don't have one job that is always locked for 4 years in a row. Looking at you, Scholar. And because that just makes people angry too and makes them not want to play. So I think in the same regard of one job always being shit, I think reasonably the only way to approach that, if they're going to stick with this kind of notion to not alienate the player base perpetually, is just have it rotate.
just one healer is going to be stronger in this tier, and then the next tier they're going to have one stronger than in the next one, or
If they acknowledge that, like, okay, this healer's the most strong this tier, next tier we're going to adjust them slightly so that this healer takes the front. At least that way, yeah, it's annoying that, you know, you don't have the consistency and balance or something, but at least that way they've kind of approached the fact that some people are going to be those one job power heroes, and, you know, and they have to appeal to that part of that player base that is a good chunk of the player base. Like, that's not just a small niche.
so. What if let's say they do this? You're talking about this a little bit, Oryza, where you're saying that for a game that says, hey, you could play any job you want to, they're not really focusing on that to where people can switch. And one of the reasons is because some people just either are so attached to a job that they want it to play when they start playing Final Fantasy 14, or they just don't have the time or care to level any other jobs, and they just play the one that they know. So what if they made it easier to access other jobs in the same role? For example, instead of having to level up a warrior all the way, if you level up a tank all the way, you have some shortcut to get that tank, the other tanks up to max level. You don't have to go through 50, 60 hours of leveling to get them all the way up, besides jump potion. But
Well, if you put me in charge of this game, leveling wouldn't even exist. So like, I don't like it would just be level 80. Like, I don't know, but like, I mean, I think that's fine. I don't think there's like necessarily a problem with that. I think like I actually thought your question was going to go a completely different way. I thought you were going to say like, what about the people who don't have time to learn like the good heal, like say that the healers were very different. It's like, oh, my main healer sucks for this fight. I don't have the time to learn the other healer. Or like you said, I really identify with this job. I don't want to play another job. I don't know what to do with the people who identify with the job. I cannot relate, so I have no idea.
okay.
But I think for the people who like don't have the time to, let's say, like learn another job, I think like what I'm talking about in terms of like wanting to play different healers is something that you probably only think about when you're at like more at the high end of rating, where you probably have the time because you've committed a lot of time to becoming like very good at the game in the first place. I think like the baseline where like it doesn't really matter what you play, right? Even the meta right now, right? Like you think about tanks, like I say, like, oh, Paladin's really good, and I think about the 3 tanks differently for different fights. Like you can, I mean, everyone likes to say this, right? You can clear any fight with any comp unless you bring like 7 bards or something stupid like that. So like, it just, I think for players who don't have the time, it just shouldn't affect them anyway. Like this is something that would only affect like mid-core, hardcore players, I think.
Yeah, I mean, technically it doesn't right now. It doesn't affect the people who want to just play Paladin, like people who host MogTalk. But, you know, yeah, I mean, sometimes I get lucky. I wasn't lucky in Heavensward, but, you know.
There's one thing I want to cycle. I heard Ori say something about, actually, he said how this game, you know, it caters to like being able to play multiple jobs. You don't have to do that. It's like, sorry, I didn't say that. It's like they have this weird fascination of gear locking you to like I'm not talking about tomes. I don't know if that's, I'm talking about melds, especially now that Astro favors spell speed more than direct hit in some cases, in some fights. Like, it is absolutely awful to play like Warrior and now Astro and have to remeld for optimal damage every single time you want to play a different job. And the fact that that's not a thing yet is really disheartening.
Maybe there should be, glamour plates, but for melds.
They've talked about that at one
Exactly.
point, haven't they?
I don't know.
I could have. I might be wrong, but I could have sworn that it's been brought up before, and they were just like Yoshi was like, "I'll look into it" or something.
Because even Mage and Scholar don't even share meld sometimes. I know in Eden's Gate they had like this different gear set. So it's like it's really weird how like that kind of like goes into like the balancing of healers. Because like if it's like an Omni healer, like obviously a spell speed set for Astro is not going to work on Scholar, or it is, but it's going to feel really bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right now, do you guys currently, when you're switching between different healers, do you actually go out and remeld every single time?
No.
No.
I'm too lazy for that.
Okay.
Even
If I was going to like try to like perform well on it, yeah, sure I would. But if I'm just mucking around in Party Finder, no, that's too much effort.
Okay.
I like do not care about my damage at all. I am very much a prog focused player, so like that kind of optimality of like melds, I'm just like Piety's safe and just fucking meld Piety. Not actually though, not this time, but once I think about it. But yeah,
okay,
that's not something to think about.
I mean, that is a really good point to bring up, and I do hope that's just a quality of life thing that kind of really needs to change. But with healers in general, I do think it would be a lot more fun if you could swap and they would just be completely different roles. And sometimes Astra is going to be stronger on one fight and Scholar is going to be stronger on a different fight. I mean, we can see them constantly going in this direction, I think, with Square Enix in general, where they are simplifying everything so they can balance it and make it to where everything is accessible to everything. And that's not as fun to me or a lot of people who play at a high level, but to most of the players who play Final Fantasy XIV who play at a casual or normal level, I think they're happy about that. Would you guys agree?
I mean, well, to be fair, that exists. There's not one clear best healer comp. It depends on the fight. Like for example, a fight like Ramu where there's forced movement, where you can actually use that to your advantage and use that rune 2 that you're forced to use anyways for like an energy drain instead of doing like an extra one. Like that's good, right? In terms of healing, like there's no clear cut quote unquote best healer comp for like a fight. In Prague, you're probably running. It really just depends on how they change Astro in 5.4. But if they don't change Astro, it's probably gonna be Mage Scholar because Astro damage is it's a lot lower than we thought it was from the nerf.
So let's talk about that a little bit because 5.3 was created a lot of discussion for healers, and so it's one of those things to where did it really just screw over Astro completely? What did 5.3 bring to healers? Because I wasn't able to, I guess, understand that fully.
So Astro basically was a very limited job when it came to its MP. Had very
Don't say
little
limit
resources. Had very limited resources that you could expend to like healing without melding.
Mm-hmm.
Like very exaggerated amounts of piety, or having very exaggerated amounts of piety compared to the other healers. But now it has one of the best MP economies, arguably the best outside of like proper thin air usage from my mage in the game, right? Like they can do multiple raises and still be above 50% MP, which is insane for like a progression style healing.
Okay.
They did take a nerf though, and one of the biggest nerfs they got is that they actually can't do a proper opener without the 30-second countdown.
30 second?
Yeah, well, you could do like 25 or something, but it's really awful. I don't know how they thought that was okay. I'm like 90% sure they're going to change it in 5.4, but if they don't, it could be pretty bad for the last turn because having to do like a 30 or 60-second div, it's going to be a damage loss in some way.
You would definitely just do the countdown by the fourth fight.
If you're hardcore progging, you chain pull, you do a 5-second countdown, you just pull instantly. Like it's you don't have the
Until you
that
get to the
opportunity
clear.
to
Yeah. Like when you're into clear pulls, then you do actual countdown, right? And everything else is just pulling and pulling.
It depends, I think, because 20-second countdown, that's going to add up even if you're going for a clear, because that's like an extra minute every 3 pulls is an extra minute extended on your prog just because you have to do that countdown. Whereas like every other job can pretty much excel in damage without having that kind of like countdown.
So you're doing the
Maybe
world
Dancer,
race,
like,
I'm assuming, coming up soon, right, Momo?
No.
No,
Good try.
you're talking like a racer here.
We've been doing hardcore prog, but
Okay.
but yeah, like,
go ahead.
so I was gonna say, like, now Astra, like, it went from that like really limited resource job to like being able to carry runs in prog. So it's definitely be a really good healer in prog. It just, the issue comes from like, because White Mage Scholar is also still really good. Arguably, you know, each healer has their strengths. Like White Mage is pretty much just slotted for healing for prog. It's basically Astra and Scholar fighting for that second slot, because like the thing with White Mage and prog is like that. It doesn't rely on people doing good damage. So like, let's say somebody dies in like a clear run, right? Their death isn't going to affect your damage because you don't have to give them any raid buffs. They don't have to do any damage under your buffs. So that's where like something like a job like White Mage excels. They also have really good MP economy. It usually doesn't matter too much in Savage Prog because they're usually like 2k plus piety. So like every healer has really insane MP economy at that point, but it can be a factor in like an ultimate fight. And they also have really good recovery potential, whereas like Scholar does too, but like Scholar's like 50-50 sometimes. Like sometimes like you'll do a mechanic, you'll heal through it, you'll have to use your resources, and then you'll be like, oh shit, somebody died, I only have an ET sucker and like maybe a Fey Blessing and Indom, because everything else is on cooldown.
Okay. When I think about changes with patches at this point, we're just trying to make the best of what we have. Square Enix usually just tries, whatever the situation is with the healers right now, they're just trying to make the best of what the skills are and abilities are and trying to keep everyone happy until the next expansion when they actually make the major changes. I don't ever expect any major changes or anything, but I think with some minor changes from kind of what you're saying right now, people would be pretty happy with the state of healing for what we have, right? I mean, would you guys say you're happy playing healer right now, or do you wish you would just get off the job like Oryza did with ranged?
Wait, I actually want to go back real quick.
Sure.
One thing that I think White Mage is really good for prog is because it's just really easy. It's like it's just a super brain dead job. You just hit your Lily.
I mean, that's
and
the
then
main complaint, though, right?
Well, like in prog, that's a huge
For
advantage.
prog, yeah.
Like when you're learning mechanics and you don't have to think about like, oh, what's my star? Like, do I have Sora? What's my Aether Flow, etc. Like, oh, I'm gonna do optimal cards. Like, it's just White Mage. You just stand there and you spam glare and like, oh, healing. I'm gonna hit my Lily, or like lots of healing. You'll hit Cure 3 and then like, good job, like you did it. And like, it's just a really straightforward job, which is very good for prog.
So that being said, that's a really good point. I want to bring this up because we're talking about making healers more interesting and doing more with them. Would you rather that they were all like White Mage, or would you rather them actually be more interesting, taking consideration for prog and everything?
I don't think there's like anything wrong with playing Scholar or Astra and prog. This is just like trying to get an advantage thing. Like this is like optimal or like good, not like necessarily more fun or not. I'm just saying like this is like what if I really want to clear fast, this is what I'm gonna do because it probably gives us the best chances of success.
Okay.
As far as fun goes, I actually feel like I actually am okay with White Mage being so easy as it is because I think it just makes the healers different from each other. I think like making White Mage easy makes it easier for people to onboard onto healing and like get used to the concept of like being responsible for the lives of like everybody else. Very different from DPSing. And then like it slowly introduces you to like having like some tools like Planarian Asylum, but like not a lot. And it helps like then if players want to get more into healing, they can transition into something like Astra or Scholar, which has a lot more tools and a lot more to think about. And I think White Mage is a good stepping stone there. So like I actually think it's a mistake to make White Mage more complicated. For that reason, like to have like a simple healer is fine. But I also think that like having the complicated healers just like gives something for better players to do as well. So in terms of like complexity, I kind of like it, but
I disagree with part of that because there's this really weird. So if you look at Astro and Scholar, there's kind of a ramp up. Say you're starting out in Savage. There's a ramp of like learning how to play better. So if you look at like Scholar, when you're starting to learn to play better and you're learning how to like deal with clips and weaves, you kind of are like, okay, I can just ruin too. And like a new healer is like gauging into that and they're just ruin twoing. It's not even a verb everywhere, but they can slowly ramp up to understanding, okay, to do this really well, I need to start pairing this back, and it clicks. White Mage is this really weird spot where like you can go into it and you can be that GCD, powerhouse, and it's really, really, really easy for a really long time until you want to try to get to that last like top level, and then clipping and weaving becomes so hard, and they have nothing that has eased them into learning how to do it properly, that I get asked these questions all the time. It's like, I don't understand how to clip and I don't understand how to weave. On Scholar, I just ruined two on all of these spots, and I can start to cut them back. And it's such a hard concept for them to grasp that I really wish they would either design away from that or design a better tool that at least gives them a way to ramp into that difficulty, because it has this really easy for like the bottom 95%, and that top 5% just gets really difficult, and there's no gradation of the core design. And I don't even think that was their intention. It's just how it actually is when you look at the math and you look at the theory. Whereas I think the other two have that kind of ramp up. Okay, if I'm new to Astro, I'll just throw out cards. If I'm getting better at Astro, I can start planning around my, party's kit. There's no ramp for White Mage, and that has always bothered me.
What do you think about that, Oryza?
I think my point was more towards like beginners to healing. The people who like do not care, like they're not
Don't
going
care
to be
about being
at,
like the top 5%.
they're not going to be looking at the top 5%
fair.
for like months. Like these
That's
are
fair,
people who are healing for the first time ever. Like these are people who have like, I don't know, you go on Reddit, you see like, oh, I have healer anxiety. You know what I'm saying? Like those, like it's for those people, like where they just like
So-
don't. No, I'm not. Like, this is like a legitimate
Well,
thing. Like it's for them.
But I feel like for those people, it's really not. Those people, they're the same kind of people when they pick up an Astro and Scholar. It's not really that much harder on those jobs to do the same things. I think the only difference you have on White Mage is you've got one more GCD heal.
I think people, from what like my experience, I think there are people who get overwhelmed by the amount of tools and are like, this is people like ask me in stream fairly often. They're like, oh, like Astro has all these tools, like how do I use them, or like how do I use all these Scholar things? And like I know like viewers have played with it, just like only like they literally just play White Mage and they have no idea how to heal, but they can like get through as White Mage because it's so simple and straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the intention with a lot of job design is they put these very core basic jobs. Like when you think healer in Final Fantasy 14, you think White Mage. So people pick White Mage, and it's the easiest one to access. I think it's the only healer they can pick when they
That's
start.
an issue.
At level 1.
That's an issue. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, like the second, like it's because of lore, right? Lore is the reason why this is a thing. The second
Lore is an
lore-
excuse. Yeah, no.
The second that lore becomes an issue in like quality of life game design is like when lore is really fucking dumb. Like Astro should be available straight away. Like
Okay.
just change it to where like it's viable at level 1 and then be able to level that. Like it's really stupid how White Mage is the only healer that you can level straight away. Same with the range, like Bard is the only one you can level.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty messed up. I think that's definitely one of the big changes I hope they make in 6.0 is that every job has a starting position. I do hope they kind of get rid of all of these like classes and everything else, and they just stick to the hard jobs and just let it go with that, because it just seems so silly. I mean, we'll lose the 2-for-1 with Arcanist, but at the same time, it just doesn't. It feels like a broken system in 1.0 that they still haven't got rid of.
Just get rid of leveling.
Leveling, what's the point? Everything needs to be horizontal too, just nothing vertical. All right. I think the game needs to still exist, right? There needs to be some story. There needs to be something that you go through. Yeah. And leveling kind of does that. It's supposed to ease it in there, although it eases it way too long. It's very dull and boring when you are going through a lot of learning the job, and it starts to get exciting once you start hitting like 50, it starts to get interesting a little bit more. But before that, it's kind of dull. Where's that point to where it's not just like it is boring. I don't have to optimize. This is stupid. Is it 80? Is it really all the way at 80 still?
Probably
Can you
60 or 70.
repeat the question?
When you're leveling a job, do you actually have to start thinking?
Depends on the
Depending on
job.
the job.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, look at this dude. I mean, to be fair, the Shadowbringers leveling dungeons can be pretty. I won't say difficult, but harder than your average dungeon if you're a new player. I would say.
Holminster is good.
Holminster is honestly the hardest dungeon they've ever released for healing. I don't think there's been a harder one. I'm not even trolling, dude. That shit is awful.
I can't remember it. Which one is that?
It's the one with all like the weird white things coming out of like those eggs in the beginning. You're running through a forest, and then there's like a village.
Oh, yeah.
Bardam's was okay.
That's the Shadowbringers one, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
what he's
the
saying,
one of the
yeah.
first ones. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
the first one.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that because it had a pretty creepy story relevance to it and very depressing where you kill your friend and you just go about your day.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't know we're like past a year of the game. But no. I forgot. Most of you guys probably haven't even seen the cutscene, so you probably don't even know what's happening in the story. But yeah, no. I think that I remember back in the day. And you know, it's still today. I will always say Ormvale is probably the best dungeon they've ever made in this game, until they made the recent changes to it. But I mean, what? No.
I like the vault. The vault is honestly probably the best
Vault's
dungeon they've
good.
ever
It's
made.
up there. Yeah. But Ormvale was wonderful, man. It's like. There was just so many things where you could mess up, you could do too much, you could die from people making stupid decisions, and I felt like that was
And they
fun.
nerfed it.
Yeah, no, it's nerfed. It's nice. That's good. I haven't done it post nerf, but yeah. Anyways, healing. Final Fantasy 14. We're talking a little bit about new jobs and everything else and how they can change it up. Are you guys all on board with basically they're going to take the simple and easy way out and just do 2 shield and 2 pure healers?
No,
You don't think they're
No.
going to do that?
because if you get
Well, you
two
said on board.
healers-
Do you want that or do we expect that? Because it's 2 different answers.
Do you expect that? Do you think that's what they're going to go with?
I think not, because if you get 2 region healers, it would be bad.
Well,
That's
the
all
thing
it
is, people are like, oh yeah, this is a regen healer, but honestly, all the healers are regen healers. They all have regens and access in their kit. So, no, I don't think they'll do that. I think I'm hoping they'll move towards this thing where you both have at least some aspect of shields and so both have some aspect of regens,
Mhm.
and then they'll like give you something different. But we'll see.
That's like best case scenario. Yeah, they make every healer literally the same.
Is that the best case scenario?
Oh well, because here's another scenario. They make Astra strictly 1 sect. They get rid of the 1 sect, because I mean that's why Astra's OP. Like Astra they dominate the white mage position because like neutral sect alone is just probably the dumbest. I don't even know why it's a thing. It's the dumbest ability in the game, because being able to play a regen style healer like white mage and then also have the ability to put up shields like that on top of their CU that's 60 seconds is absolutely the dumbest like design decision I've ever seen.
Okay. All right. Oryza, you look like you agree with that 100%.
I don't know. Well, like I think it's kind of hard. I think when you think about the first 3 fights this tier, like it doesn't even matter because you don't ever GCD heal. So like neutral doesn't even come into play. I was just laughing because someone suggested to me the other day that neutral should affect off GCDs, and I told them that'd be like the most broken thing that I've ever seen. It'd be really funny. So I was just thinking about that. But
Okay. Well, I mean, like, I understand that if you get 2 pure regen healers or whatever, that would suck, but you would just lock the party. You would say, this is our shield healer spot, and this is our regen healer spot, right? I mean, and that would be your thing.
That sounds like
Yeah.
garbage.
I mean, they
I
already
just-
introduced what I think I saw it recently in Party Finder. I didn't even know it until I saw it because I don't read patch notes. Apparently, is that they have the only one job
No,
option,
please.
right?
No, dude.
Or only one class,
dude.
or
One
yeah,
No,
player
dude.
per job.
The
One
no
player
dude.
per job.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it
I
seems like
think-
maybe they're going that way. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like that change was more because it affects LV Gen than it was to discourage it. But I don't know.
Okay. We'll see. I want them to just take a stance to where they can be creative and fun. And I know it's just going to be there's 5 jobs and they look a little bit different and they do a couple different things and that's going to be it. I mean, and they just have like
So-
4
such
different
confidence.
versions of the same job. Because that's just what the game looks like it's going to. It's trying to make it very open to everybody, right? And how do you make a successful business? You have more people play the game. And people play Final Fantasy 14 because they like Final Fantasy. It's, it's one of those things where it's nostalgia that drags you in and it makes you want to play it. I mean, I probably wouldn't like Cobra Kai if I didn't like Karate Kid. So there's things that, like, they pull you into the game because you want to be there for what it looks like and the styles and everything else. And it has an acceptable level of gameplay.
Yeah, so this
No?
is maybe this is an aside, but I was actually surprised how many people play Final Fantasy 14. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm an idiot, but I was like, wow, I don't really like Final Fantasy. The only Final Fantasy game I like is Final Fantasy 13. So like,
What?
everyone's like talking about all this other stuff, yeah, and they're like, oh yeah, like all this like sick like Omega Rain. I'm like, who are these people? Like, I don't know what this is. Like, what's a Kefka? Like, I don't fucking know.
Okay, all right. No, I wasn't thinking that. So, am I wrong? Am I speaking out my ass that people play?
No,
this
you're
game?
probably right. You're
Okay.
probably right. I'm just saying
No.
that this is like
Okay.
surprising to me. You're probably right.
Uh,
So you can tell based on chat, everyone's like,
yeah,
No
no,
one-
because
no one-
13 was when everyone was like, "Wow, what's happening to Final Fantasy?"
yeah,
So
but 13's good. It's better than 14.
okay, that's two different things. But no, I think. God damn! Why are you so wrong? Just like I don't get it.
Is it better or worse that I played 7 and I quit halfway through because I didn't like it?
You're probably just a baby. It's okay. I mean, like when children are playing games like old games, they don't understand. It's okay.
You know, you're not even wrong. You're literally not even wrong.
Yeah, I mean that's a factor. Yeah. Like if you didn't play when it was relevant and like released, like it's gonna be harder for you to go back, especially because it's so dated.
Yeah, the state of what games were back then is not the same as now, and so it's really hard to go back and play 7 and enjoy it, unless if you were into RPGs back then. It evolved a lot. The remake, though.
I haven't started it yet, but I plan to eventually.
Yep. I hate fan servicey kind of anime stuff, and it has a little bit of that in it, so it's not.
Does it?
To me,
Tifa.
yeah,
Tifa.
Tifa's
She's
Yeah.
100% whole anime emotions and
the squeaky voices and like kind of like the high anticipated kind of like I don't know. Anyways, I liked the game. I thought the gameplay was amazing. I liked how they were going in that direction with sort of turn-based but action at the same time and slowing down time and all that stuff was a lot of fun. Anyways, healing in Final Fantasy 14.
14.
I think, maybe they should take elements from Final Fantasy 7 and bring that into
It's true.
healing in Final Fantasy 14. That would work out great. But I don't know, man. We've gone over so much, and I haven't looked at this fucking document once the entire time that we were talking, so I'd have to look at it to see what we actually didn't cover.
There's,
Who
like,
asked
good-
the question? How do you make Scholar not bored? Who said that?
Get him.
I mean, I'm just curious because I'm curious because like, how is Scholar any less boring than like the other 2 healers? They all kind of play the same.
I think White Mage is more boring. But
Yeah, if
not by a
anything,
lot.
yeah, Scholar has a little bit more optimized than Mage does, like the high end, but like they play like literally the exact same.
All right, so I do know one thing. I can like not look at that document at all and look at all the questions that people have asked. I didn't actually ask any questions in the last show, so I feel bad if we don't do some viewer questions. And we have a little bit of time to work with, so we can go through some viewer questions if you'd like.
Dude, I'm ready to keep There's so much we didn't even talk about.
There's
Just keep going.
there is a lot. I mean, we could go back to the document. We can go back and forth, but I figured it might be a good time to remind people that there are questions you can ask. And while you guys might have a variety and a broad spectrum of things to ask, there are questions like this one in particular: is Shiva hentai considered child pornography? It's not really a question that we care to go over on the show. So you could ask those, but I will likely skip over them. Things like this, where it's saying, for Levy, what is the best healer and why is it Scholar? I may ask. So, Levy, why is Scholar the best healer?
White Mage is the best because it's the prettiest.
Okay.
Fair. I didnn catch who it was who asked it.
They write whatever they put in their name. Like when this is a form they fill out, and so I tell them to fill out their name, so they could lie and say they are Levy, but they said they're no Wazoo.
Oh, hi no.
Okay.
I mean, so it's a troll question, but I mean, I have likes and dislikes with all of the healers. I try and jump around between the three. Obviously, I'm, a big White Mage fan. I am one of those people who sticks to the one job. I'll flex off when I need to, but I definitely gravitate back to it because I play the game for the aesthetics. I like the aesthetics. So, I can still play hardcore, but I come back to what I think is prettiest. But I think there's pros and cons to a lot of jobs. I think Scholar does really well fitting the niche of like, okay, you've got all these OGCDs, and OGCDs are always like the hardest hurdle for new players to learn because everybody's always like, sucker. And I'm like, okay, let's try using some of your other kit. But I think they're a really nice way to like get people into, okay, how do I actually think about what I'm doing instead of just using Medica 2 to solve all my problems.
Okay. All right. Oryza, do you not agree that no, he's just
Astro's the prettiest healer.
Okay.
Sorry, Astro's the prettiest
White
healer.
Mages. I'm sorry. I've been playing healer longer than you. I think my opinion is more relevant here.
I mean, she has a point.
I've been playing healer that long. It's true.
I mean, when people do talk about the end game, they do say glamour is the end game, and it's
true.
It's funny because it is a joke, but it's really not. There's so many people in this game that only care about how their character looks, and that's their main focus. And so they get really good at the game to make sure they have access to every single piece of adjustment for their clothing.
The reason I leveled Astro first, this is back in 3.4, is because I really like the sound effect that gravity makes. So, it's just how it goes. The foop noise, yeah, I loved it. It was amazing. So
I respect that. I'm getting so much slack for saying White Mage is prettiest. I'm sorry for speaking facts.
Okay. Momo, do you have an opinion on this?
I like Scholar the best.
Okay.
I didn't even answer your question. What was the question? I forgot.
I'm done, dude. Like I'm past that question. Like
okay.
So a lot of time you might not realize this a lot of times, but I think, okay, this seems relevant at this point because these things were said and I'm going to go in this direction with this question. And if you give me 2 minutes of that not being answered, I'm not going to remember what that question was. So
right. I'm down.
All right. No. But, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, on the document, like you were saying, there's a lot of stuff we didn't even go over. And you made a point to say that, by the way, Oryza. So I'm going to make you pick something on this document that you felt like was vital that we didn't go over that you would like to speak on.
Oh, yeah. Can I talk about the differences between good and bad healers?
Yes.
I feel very strongly about this.
Absolutely. Let's go into it.
Okay. I really, really hate... So maybe I just want to complain. I really, really hate how in PF there are so many healers who just like don't understand how to recover a pull. I think that's by far the biggest like skill gap between a good and bad healer, and it's so prevalent in PF. I play with healers, it's like, oh man, my co-healer died. I'm just gonna jump off. Like one person's down, I'm just gonna jump off. I don't know what to do. And it's like, oh no. And then there's a lot of healers like there's nothing wrong with like being a bad healer. Like a lot of new healers do this, right? Like, people will die, and they'll freeze up. They'll just stand there. They don't know what to do. And then, like, they're just like, oh, shit. Like, oh, do I heal? Like, do I raise? Like, I don't know. And then they just stand there. Or, like, they kind of autopilot. Like, they fall back on their habit, which for 99% of players is spamming your nuke. So, like, the White Mage will just spam Glare, and, like, 3 people down the ground, the White Mage is still there just spamming Glare. I don't, like, not because they want to greed, although there are healers that want to greed, but because they don't know what to do and they're thinking. So like while they're thinking, right, they're like keeping that GCD rolling instinctively. But like the difference between like maybe like a decent healer and a great healer is like your ability to recover.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the same case when I was doing Shiva not too long ago. I had a healer who I think I pulled a second early, and that sucks, right? It sucks to have an early pull, but at the same time, if you're just going in there and you're clearing and you're not trying to get a parse, it's weird that someone would jump off the side, especially a healer, if you pull 1 second too early. And that's what they were doing. And so I feel like that is absolutely true that and this goes for all the roles and everything else. I feel like there's too many players who are so caught up in the exact rotation and the exact way everything has to play out that if a mistake happens, they just stop caring about the entire thing and they just do whatever, or they just kill themselves. I think that's
Are you there?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I wonder if to talk about the shield healer thing then. God, I think you were there, Ori, when we were talking about fucking shield healers.
When?
This was like, it wasn't on the stream today. It was it's talking about like shield healing in this game and like how a lot of like kind of goes back into like the bad healers, like where they don't want to, I guess, I'm trying to think how to word this better, but like for example, when learning mechanics, there's lots of mechanics in this game you can actually cheese by shielding. One of the best examples actually is the Mirror 3, where you can survive one of the mirrors hitting your group and take a damage down. But you can actually learn the mechanic by shielding it. And a lot of shield healers doing prog actually didn't do that, and they actually made their group white more times than they needed to because they had to get there more often to see the mechanic. Whereas like groups who just put a sucker shield up or an aspect of Helios up, they went through it faster because they had more prog time in a sense. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty prevalent in a lot of cases. It's in like a lot of fights where that's the thing where like the shield healer's like, you're kind of like responsible, right? In the sense that like, yeah, somebody shouldn't be making a mistake, but like if somebody makes a mistake and they die because you didn't want to shield them or you didn't do an extra heal on them to give them like a beefier shield, then that death's on you. Like sure, like half of it's on the person that fucked up, but like it's also your responsibility to recover from that mistake. Mm-hmm. Which is why like shield healing is like the hardest role to prog on, because like you have the most responsibility in like recovering and kind of controlling the group when things go bad.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what a lot of people who or actually enjoy healing do, right? They try to make sure that they are responsible for keeping people up and making up for all these mistakes and everything else. And I feel like that's so much fun. It's so much fun to be off script and just do well. And I don't know how to change that with the player mentality right now. There's no way to change that. People are so used to getting their parses and trying to get this exact script down and that they don't want to get off that. I mean, do you know even how we could change the community's mind? Is that something that's just going to be permanent there forever?
So we mentioned RNG earlier, and I think that would help. And I think one of the things is that like because fights are so scripted, you just like follow this like Simon Says dance throughout the whole fight. And then like the only thing that ever disrupts that is someone dying, generally, because then things go weird. But when you add a lot of RNG, then it's like, okay, now I need to, like, people like to say that you have to play very proactively in this game rather than reactively, which is true. But like once you get to like recovery situations, it's all about like a lot of it's reactive. Mm-hmm. It's a mix. You do need to know what's coming next and all that. But I think like practice playing reactively will help people. RNG elements and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I also think the other part is like there's this whole mentality of like maybe I'm just speaking to PF, but so many PF players do not understand mechanics. They see the guide and then they're like, oh, I go from this marker to this marker and I have no idea why. And the second somebody dies, they just still do it, but then they'll also die and they're like, why'd I die? And then they'll have no idea and that'll just be the end of it. And like, I don't know how to change that mentality. That's if you could change that, I feel like you need to write like a book on human psychology or something. Like, I don't know.
I think it's too rooted in at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but it would be great if it changed.
I think the RNG thing would help out a good bit. I will say the most fun I had with Shiva when I was progging it in Party Finder is when someone messed up with something and we still like cleared light rampant. Like even though someone messed up the debuffs, I saw the mess up and I was able to adjust how those what was happening there, and we were still able to get the right amount of stacks in there. Or with the blue and red stacks, no one apparently knows that if you get 2 stacks, it's still okay. You can still clear it. You just have to do it 2 different parts of the roll.
Right.
And I had a lot of fun doing that when we were going through and still being able to go to the next part and not completely wiping just because it's like, oh, I got 2 stacks, I guess it's over. All right, you can still do the red and blue, whatever. Anyways,
I think to that point, I wish the game did a better job of making it so that a player could figure out what a mechanic is doing, because like some mechanic all you get to go on is a debuff, but like trying to like figure out what a debuff says mid pull is not feasible for most players, especially if you're on a controller. But even like mouse and keyboard, like remembering to hover over the thing while it's still on, like you don't have that much time to do it. So how are you actually going to read what this debuff does? And some of them, yeah, it's just you get a vuln, but some of them are like you have to do this thing and this thing before the time. Like how are you going to know that? And I wish the game did a better job of telling players this is what's happening.
I think to me, and my whole opinion of all of it is they just need to do it. They need to read it and take the hit and die. I mean, when you're progging it the first few times, you're learning. You're trying to find all, and that's what world prog is all about, right? You're going through
Absolutely.
and you're finding out all these different things, and you're accepting that what you're doing is learning and getting help trying to figure it out as a group, and then moving forward.
But I was speaking more to like the party finder person who's just watching a guide and doing what they're doing. How do we get them to engage with it? Well, it's not easy for them to figure out how to do it either.
They just have to look at guides. Yeah.
I think like approaching stuff like debuff text, like I see it like there's 2 aspects. One, like from like originally I was thinking about from the blind prog perspective, where like you have to hover and like you just die. That's just what happens. You just die and you screenshot it. Or actually, there's a lot of tools in this game that I feel like people don't utilize to the fullest extent. I have a very specific battle log setup that only shows my debuffs and buffs and the specific other things. So anytime I get a debuff, after I die, I can check that battle log, and you can just hover it over right there and check it. The other aspect is from reading a guide perspective, and like I think the question just comes down to is like, can you convince the person who's watching the guide that they have to remember what the debuffs say? And like, I don't know. Can you? Probably. I can't. I know I can't. I wish I could though. Mm-hmm. And like, then because once a guide is out, like in my opinion, once a guide is out, like it is not really reasonable to like not understand how any of the mechanics work. Once like the guides are out, and assuming the guides are right? Mm-hmm. Because like the guides literally tell you what they do, and like I think people just sleep through that part until they get to see the nice diagram solution, and they just do that.
Yeah. I mean, there's the thing. Either when you're raiding, you're a blind progger, or you're not a blind progger. There's not like any real in between. Either you say, I'm going to go through this blind with the group, or I'm not. And if you're going through it blind, you have to approach it in a certain way to where you go and you try to figure out the mechanics and you do these little things to learn. If you're not a blind progger, you should be reading guides. I mean, that's it. And you have to leave Final Fantasy 14 and go on a website and do things outside the game. But I think that's part of what makes wonderful communities, is having outside resources that you have to access. But that's just my whole opinion to all of it. I don't know. I'm an old shithead anyways. So going back, what were you like? You're talking about what's the difference between a good healer and a bad healer and everything else, and being able to be reactive. And when we're discussing that, I do absolutely agree that I think that if they could make players have to be more reactive and not just follow a script, it would make for both more fun fights and better players. But that's up to Square Enix to say if they want to make fights. I guess that's a level of difficulty. Either they have to accept that they're putting out there or not. But I mean, Momo, do you have any tips on the difference between a good player and a bad player?
I mean, the only thing is I feel like the biggest thing is I think what Ori kind of went over, and that's just your reactability. Because it's easy to plan stuff, but not being able to adjust to either emergencies or RNG is an issue.
Okay. Levy, you're on the
'Cause
same
it's-
page?
Oh.
I'm done with you, Momo. You said you agree with
Okay.
him, so it's boring.
Yeah.
Go.
I mean, I feel like there's like three phases. You've got the healer who does no planning and is purely reactive. Then they get a little bit better, and now they're only planning and they're never reacting. And then you need like the third tier of like the one who is mostly planning but knows when to react when appropriate. And I feel like that's the gradation. But yeah,
You know what?
generally.
Now that I'm thinking about it, this isn't on the developers to make players be better. This is on the community. If you guys are not healers, one thing you could do to help your healers be better is be bad. So everybody who's not a healer, start messing up mechanics.
Please no.
And start going out there and making your healers adjust.
Are you just trying to give us more work?
Yeah,
Give
I'm
us
trying to
more
make you better. This is good for you guys.
MogTalk told me to eat all of these AoEs.
It's for your own good.
No.
Healers adjust. Absolutely.
That only works if PF healers actually think about what they did wrong.
Well, that's it. Okay, that would be the thing. You would just think about what they did wrong, and everybody.
It doesn't help if I think about it. They need to think about what they did wrong.
Okay. So let's go back to another question here. This is a good one. This is for you, Momo. I figure since we gave one question over here to Levity, we should give everyone one here. Momo, would you mind if I added you to my upcoming Final Fantasy XIV Yo manga? Love your stream. What does that even mean?
Can you copy and paste the question? So
Oryza's dying, so I think
I have no idea. No, I have no idea. It's funny.
I don't know. That's what it says. It's in Twitch chat right now.
Oh, Yowie.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yowie.
is it Yowie?
Oh my fuck!
I told
no.
you. I'm just.
Oh, no.
I don't even know what that is.
All right, next question.
All right, cool. No, all right.
You
So,
can Google it later, Frosty.
all right.
I also don't know if he's feeling better.
Oh, thank you. I guess we have some innocent people here in the stream at the moment, and
I
some
think it's
not.
the boomers in the street.
It's the boomers, yeah. All right. So I guess we should. While we're going through all this, Oryza had a question that he really wanted to pick out from this list of billion questions that we didn't go over. Momo, was there something on this document you saw that you really wanted to hit that we haven't hit? I can let you look for a little bit if you want. I'm going to let you look for a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm looking at how can you communicate better with your co-healer?
Yeah, that's
That's
another
a good
one.
one.
Those are words.
So let's do it this way. Let's look at it as a perspective of someone you know and someone you don't know. Someone you are in Party Finder with, how do you communicate with them properly? And someone who is your co-healer that you have to deal with all the time.
Actually, I mean that's a good point. In Party Finder, I usually I don't usually trust anybody in Party Finder. Kind of just like overcompensate. Like for example, in Isolate, I always do 2 Asunas. Like I never trust the other healer to get the other Asuna because like I've just been let down so many times. So I just usually give both of them. So I usually like overcompensate in Party Finder.
So that's how you communicate. You just make up for them being
Yeah,
bad
like-
before you know they're
For
bad.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's there's so many different types of healers in Party Finder. You can't you can communicate to an extent, but I feel like it's just much easier just to overcompensate. But that question kind of only refers to
Static
static
co-healers. Okay.
environments. Yeah.
All right. So how do you do that?
Make a spreadsheet.
Okay. You communicate through.
I mean, it
Google
really
Docs?
depends on what kind of. It really depends. You have there's lots of different types of people, right?
Mhm.
Like, not everybody is the same person. Some people are more quiet than others. Some people are more shy than others. Some people are more outgoing than others. You kind of have to like some healers don't really talk that much at all. Actually, there's a lot of quiet healers.
Mhm.
But people still work it out. It's just having a good line of communication, being able to. It's actually really fun. I think that your co-healer being your friend is actually a good friend is actually really good for healer communication.
Well, I'm going to let you know I co-healed with my wife, and that was one of the worst decisions I made back when I did it. So,
Okay. Well, I'm talking about somebody that you have a good
come on, go ahead, say it.
I'm
Yeah, I
trying-
was gonna
Say it.
where's this
Say
gonna
it. Oh, bro.
No. Oh no, I'm not talking about that. I kind of moved on. Like
go? Uh-huh.
having somebody like you have a good like baseline communication with.
You're saying he doesn't have
is-
good communication.
You're
with
saying
his
I don't
No,
have
that's
good
not what I'm
communication.
saying, dude.
No, I think the biggest issue I had is that like I was a shitty healer and she had to make up for a lot of stuff that I did and I felt bad for that. And it, if something was going wrong, it was the healers who were to be to blame. And so it was always one of those things like how do we work this out to where we're not constantly saying, oh, it's their fault or anything else. And it's just in the end, it's better just not to do it. I mean, with a friend, maybe I could probably tell. If I was healing with Oryza, I'd say, hey man, you're playing really shitty. I'm constantly having to make up for you just wanting the DPS all the time, and I might be okay with that. Because I don't think Oryza would take that offensively, would you?
Yeah,
No, I would probably just call you a fucking idiot.
Oh,
having somebody that's like that like you don't like get offended with, I guess, is
well, I mean,
good,
yeah,
'cause,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, like because like sometimes you'll have those healer duos who you try to bring something up to them and they'll be like, oh no, I'm doing it this way because I did this way.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I know it was so long ago. I don't really remember. It was probably a wonderful healing time, and I just remembered it incorrectly. I don't know. I think you're right. To have someone that you could feel like you're talking openly with, and you're not trying to offend, is actually pretty important. Because then you don't have to walk on eggshells and tell them
that's
that they're
exactly what I
doing
was
something
gonna say.
wrong. Yeah.
Walking on eggshells is like really bad when it comes to those kinds of like communication levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for me and my co-heal like doesn't talk most of the time. He only talks in prog. And like it's funny when Momo said like the spreadsheet thing, because I was thinking about what we do, and it's like we don't do any of that. Like we don't spreadsheet anything, but we don't also optimize. Like we think about prog a lot more. So like in a situation where we can't even spreadsheet also, right? Because like the first 3 you get through so fast. If you're spreadsheeting it, you're probably just wasting time.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it was just like you just have to say exactly what you're thinking and like what you need from the other person, just like the second you think of it, or like anything that you think your co-healer might need to know. Like I'm like, as this happening, like obviously there's a lot of like different things you're talking about in prog, but like if there's like some dead time, you're just like, oh, I'm gonna cut this medica too, or like, oh, you use an indom here, like I can like move this around, or like when things go wrong, it's like I'm raising this person, I need help topping, like oh, I don't have anything, like is a pretty common call that like you hear, because just like my co-here's the scholar, it's just like, oh, I don't have indom, so now I know that I have to like swift a cure 3 or something like that. Like those like just in the moment, just like especially in recovery, just letting your healers dominate the conversation and just like say exactly what's going on is like you just have to like say it just exactly what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if like if people don't talk, like they don't talk, but I feel like it's not too hard to like say what you need to say. It's just most people just don't say anything is the problem. And then this is specifically for a static. For PF, it's like you just assume they're bad. Like that's what Momo said.
Literally you overcompensate. If you're not overcompensating party finder, you're like expecting them to be some kind of like god, then that's your own problem.
Well, I think this conversation also expands way past the healers usually, because it usually goes into what debuffs are what cooldowns are the tanks using, and when you're balancing out all this stuff, when is your DPS using their utility and stuff. And so it usually doesn't just limit itself between the healers, at least in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I feel like the communication overall in the party has to increase, not just usually with healers. I mean, healers do have a little bit, but it's never... Like, for example, in Oryza's situation, it's like, I don't have Endom here. Okay, what after it's over, like, where are you using Endom? Why are you using it there? Could you use it here? And that's where the conversation usually morphs into, right?
Yeah, that's how my co-healer does it too. We don't use spreadsheets anymore. I haven't used spreadsheets since Alpha Escape.
Then why'd you suggest it?
Well, because some healers need it. Like, some healers don't have that level of communication that, like, some people do between their co-healers.
Okay.
Like, if you're able to, like, optimize on the fly, be able to, like... figure out like, okay, we're definitely overhealing this, we can take away like something here, then like that's really good. Like that's probably like the best co-healer you can find. But some people can't do that. Some people need strict numbers to be able to to function properly.
Okay. Levy, you were saying something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's actually value in not talking, which sounds weird, but when a really good co-healer team knows each other and knows how they're going to react to something without talking about it for some things, not for everything, but you play with somebody often enough, and you'll learn like somebody died, they're always going to raise first and lustrate. So not to blow your swift cast because they almost always get it. And you don't necessarily need to communicate those things and clear up the comms in case there's something else that needs to go on. And I think there's a lot to be said for, maybe you just joined a new static and you're about to start the tier and you're not sure how to build up the communication. Go practice some stuff together. Sometimes it's not about talking or planning or especially sometimes it's just learning the behavior patterns that your co-healer is going to do, and just are they always going to med 2 for everything, and do they always sucker for everything, or can you learn some patterns of what they're going to do on their own so you can adjust accordingly, and vice versa. And I think there's a lot for the lack of communication there, but it's its own form of communication that I think is really important.
So if I can add to that real quick, and I don't know, I assume this is relevant, maybe it's not, but I do all my prog in Party Finder because I'm an idiot who just hates having dedicated time slots to things.
You hate your life.
Yeah, and so basically when I do Party Finder, I refuse to join any Discord channel or anything with the groups that I'm doing it with. I can't stand doing the RNG. I don't know if I'm going to get the guy who eats chips in the mic the entire time. All this other stuff. It drives me insane. I just don't want to risk it. If it's someone that I know, like it's people I'm like, I can trust them to be okay and not be horrible in my ear and just be like screeching sonic noises from their mic or whatever they're doing. Then it's great. I'll do it. But most of the time, I refuse it. And the reason why is because it's so distracting to hear people in my ear versus just watching what's happening in front of me, seeing what the other tank is doing, seeing what I need to do to make up for what they're not doing, or trying to just go in and fit in. Seeing what's actually happening is always better to me than just hearing stuff being called out to me in the headset. I don't know if that's weird or if that's even relevant to how healers might work, but for me, it's always completely avoid any kind of communication at all. So I mean,
it depends. It depends on the situation because, like, on the one hand, I get what you're saying, and I like being on voice even if I'm pugging with people. I've had some fantastic experiences just hopping into random party finders to me. Let's all join in voice. But at the same time, I have also had the, oh my god, there's a girl in voice. Let's start making fart jokes. And so I've had both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
But it depends on your play style. Like, if you get distracted by those things, then why would you expose them to these things? If you work really well being able to hear people, one of the things I like about being in voice is that it's really easy when you're not in voice to not have that human element to playing with the people, and then you start to get tilted and angry. I know friends of mine who, if they don't know that who the person is and they're making a mistake, they get really angry. Whereas you invite that person to voice, now they become a human and they become somebody you're social to, and now you're not angry at them for messing up, but you can talk to them in a better way. And I feel like it helps with a fun experience that way. But again, I
really hate most people. So I mean,
it really depends on what you want to do. I don't think there's anything wrong with either situation.
Okay. I mean, that does bring a whole different point of view to it, to be honest with you. When we go into the bigger picture of talking about voice and actually what your voice sounds like and how that affects the other people around you, and teenage boys and everything else that are involved in a lot of Discords and voice chats that could have its own reactions. But I think, I don't know. I saw something in chat that was actually a really good follow-up question to all this is, when we're talking about working and communicating with new healers, or with healers in general and the people you're healing with, and I'd have to scroll up a little bit to get the exact question, but it was talking about bringing in new healers. Basically, how do you go about training or trialing new healers? And this is from, oh god, the screen is so far away, I can't read the name. Is it better to do current tier or try to bring them into content they're comfortable with and see how they're actually reacting to unfamiliar situations?
Both, all of the above, whatever you have time for.
Okay, just being right together. Yeah, trialing and trying to see if they'll be good for your group.
I'm actually curious what Momo has to say on this, because aren't you guys trying for healers?
We were, but our and
Oh,
then
okay.
Jin came back. So I mean,
Oh, okay.
trying healers is really weird because like, for example, like it depends on experience too. Like you don't want to just heal with anybody. There's actually like very few people that actually message out that I even like there's like maybe 2 or 3 people that I was like even give a thought about. But
Okay.
like it really just depends on like the co-healer too, because like it's pretty easy to figure out like right away without even trialing them like how good a healer is just based on like logs and stuff. 'Cause,
Oh,
like you can see a
okay.
lot just from like not damage logs, you know,
Mhm. No,
like
no, no. Yeah, yeah.
seeing how they react in like pugs or you know
Thoughts.
their early week 1 clears, looking
Yeah.
at their early VODs. Uh, if you're at the point like where you pick somebody out, you know, you have somebody trialing them in an environment where they're not used to is probably ideal. And in the case of like, I think the best way to do is actually to do strats that, like, even if your group didn't do it, doing strats that they didn't do is probably the best. It's like, for example, I don't know, like maybe like for Blackfire, right? Let's say they did that. You know, you went to nail, you stack at the wall. Maybe change that to wall strat where you go around the wall. Little things like that, just to change it up where they're not used to doing it. Probably the best way to trial them, to
See
where
how
they're
they
not
do when
like
they're
totally in the
uncomfortable.
same environment.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, you have your party member purposely kill themselves in the middle polls and see what the
Exactly.
co-healer
True.
does?
Exactly. See, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Just play worse, have other people play worse, and you can start to figure out how good of a healer they are.
I've done that. I've
Yeah.
purposefully played chatty when I'm trialing somebody just to see how they react to it.
Okay. All right.
I'm lucky that I haven't tried a healer like
Oh, it's awful.
in god 2 years. Like ever since I've been a healer, I haven't tried a healer. Me and my co-healer, like we formed this group together. Like I'm with other people, but like we haven't switched out. But like I think trialing in general, I have a lot of thoughts on trialing in general because I fucking hate trialing. But
Meeting new
I
people and having to be a
I hate
judge
meeting
and
new
this,
people.
yeah, it's the worst.
I don't know. Trying's a whole mess, but I think putting people into unfamiliar situations is really big in trialing in general. Like obviously this is like a prog focused thing. Like if I'm like taking people into blind prog, I want to take them into like stuff they just don't know and see how they play, see how fast they learn. There's only so much you can, in my opinion, so much you can learn from looking at logs. Once people like know a fight, however they play in that fight is almost meaningless because they already know it. Like prog is such a different world where you have to figure out everything on your own on the fly and like hopefully do it fast. That like the only way to simulate that is to be like, oh, have you done like turn 8? No, okay, we're doing TANS now, and like you're gonna have to learn the mechanics and the healing, and you're like adapt your level 50 toolkit all at the same time. Like this is your trial,
Mhm.
so
Okay.
but like then obviously there's a lot of things like talking to them, see how they react about like talking about healing and healing optimization and like prog mentality stuff, like how like their thoughts on that kind of thing. I'm a big proponent of just like talking to people as a big part of like I guess like not the trial, but like in recruitment, talking to people is really big. And then just like we talked about communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I would in a trial, I would definitely be like, is this person communicating their heals to me? Or like when someone dies of healing, they talk about like what tool they're using or like what tool they can move around or ask something out of me, like that kind of thing.
Okay. Levy, did you want to add any thoughts to that at all?
I mean, no, I agree pretty much with like
Okay.
everything you said there. Like, I know people have like kind of turned up their nose at the idea of doing like an interview, which you don't need to do anything formal like that. But I'm saying this knowing that like my current co-healer is another scholar mentor on the Balanced Tonto, and we kind of didn't really do any of that, and we're kind of like, you want to just heal this year together? And he's like, yeah, sure, and that's kind of the extent of it. So I say this being a huge hypocrite, but I do think there's a lot of value in just bringing the person into a talk, like to a chat, and just seeing if you guys mesh, because honestly you'll work the best, especially with a co-healer, because you need so much synergy between those two roles more than any other role in the party. I do think there's a lot to just talking to them and just, you know, are you going to get along? Is one of you a bottom? It's like, it's you need to know like the person who is just going to like pick up the slack or always do the thing, even though
okay. to the bottom.
So
You
Who's
say
the
that, but
crab?
like people know.
let's
what I
continue
mean.
on this analogy. Yeah, let's keep going.
People are going to know, like, if somebody's got a very strong personality, they're not going to work very well with another strong personality. You need somebody who's going to be a little bit more submissive, or vice versa. So I say the word bottom because people, tend to know immediately what I mean by that.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
Actually, it's funny you say that because both my old co-healer that we had in T, right? He was actually it was actually like a it actually worked out even though we were both like in your words top. So
Oh my
it can work in that situation where like you
It
choose
can.
aggressive people. It's usually
It
really
absolutely
hard though, to
can.
make it work.
It can, but it's good to know when you're in that trial phase.
I think that's a really good point. And I ran a very casual static for years. And we had to replace people every once in a while. And we'd have people, they were great players, but once they got in there, I was like, I can't stand hearing this guy's voice. I can't stand like knowing he exists in any way around me because their personality was just so bad. It was so bad. It's like, I don't have fun being in a group with this person. And I think if you take away that enjoyment, then you stop caring about being good at the game, or you stop caring about doing other things because you hate this other person so much, or dislike them, I guess is not a strong word, enough for you not to even want to show up for raid half the time. So yeah, I think making sure you guys mesh in a way that you will be happy playing with them is very important, which is overlooked a lot. But unless if you're a hardcore world prog and friends don't
Everybody
matter,
hates each other.
winning is the only thing that matters.
I mean, if you're only going to be together for a week, then you don't have to like the people.
Exactly.
I can't speak for other groups, but I only recruit people that I like.
Okay.
I know that much.
Fair.
So
But you also don't world race. You just have fun and you push hard, right?
yeah, we just go in there and we just dig around a little bit, and then somehow the boss dies.
Yeah, at some point. So, Levy, if you don't mind, I had everyone kind of go through the doc and just make sure they pick something that they wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about yet. If you could do that real quick while I ask this question to Oryza that was asked. That figure is pretty important as well. Depending on a lot of stuff that you said in the show, if we take it seriously or not, why is Ori wrong for not salting his pasta water? Do you not put salt in pasta water?
No.
Do you cook? Do you cook normally? Do you cook at all? No. Okay.
Like very rarely.
Okay. So this is good that we got that out of the way, because that's fine. If you don't cook and you don't put salt in pasta water, it's perfectly fine, because you just suck at cooking. That's all right. Yeah,
I do.
Yeah.
Do you put salt in pasta water?
Absolutely. Do you not?
I don't cook either, dude. Best thing I can make is an omelet, dude.
If you make,
I can make a bomb omelet though. I got some. You want some omelets? I got you.
Let's go, Momo.
All right.
I actually had an argument with people who snap their pasta in half before they put it in water, and how that's the worst thing ever.
So
I only eat ziti.
What? Ziti?
I only eat spaghetti. You get ziti. It's better pasta.
But you don't put salt in there. I mean, I feel like it's one of these things, right? Like, if someone says they don't put salt in pasta water, it's like, well, they just don't cook. I don't know. Like, have they even made pasta before? Have they tried and just thought this was the idea? You put pasta in water and you're done. And that's...
Look, dude. Plain pasta tastes great. That's all I have to say.
All right, Levy, you had a question. I think that you probably picked so far.
So when I look at this sheet, my eyes immediately go to the white mage clipping one, because it comes up all the time in the balance. And I'm probably more hard there than I should be on people, because I have my whole little write-up for it, and there's like a 7-step priority system, because in reality, the white mage design has lilies that are supposed to be your movement tool, your weave tool, a heal tool. They're supposed to refund DPS. They tried so hard to make it do all of these things at once that I can't just give them a use this in the situation answer. It's so subjective. So what I want to tell people for this is, like, if you're not at that point where you're trying, like, you can just clip. It's not going to keep you from clearing a fight. If you are trying to improve and you trying to, like, figure out how to do it the right way, it is unfortunately a really big jump from just okay clip to like here's how you actually have to do it, because you need to consider these 4 GCDs, which some of them, 2 of them might have been in the past, 2 might be coming up. 1, you might have 1 here and 3 there. You have to look at all 4. You have to look at what your co-healer is doing. You have to look at what you're going to get for weaves under all 4 of these, what movement you're going to get or not get out of them, the raid buffs you're going to get from the misery or not. And it is extremely complicated, and it really shouldn't be. So if I have one takeaway for people who are listening, don't try to hurt yourself, hurt your brain figuring out what it is. Unless you're speedrunning where you can like plan it and not have to, you can do all of the math. It's a lot of mental math on the fly. Try to just work it down to a simple priority, like, if you don't have anything to weave here and you need to get your eyes out, use a lily. Like, don't worry about it too much. Don't stress too much about it. It is really complicated. It's really subjective. There's a lot of mental math, but it's doable. And don't leave the class approachable, leave it fun, don't make it unfun for yourself.
Okay. I mean, that's actually really good. I think when we start talking about how to work the system and how to work the game framework and make it play in your favor with clipping and going into the very more advanced side of things, then you're in the really advanced side of handling a healer or any job in particular.
There's this really big gap between like playing white mage and you can clear savage, you can clear ultimate, spamming Medica 1 and not realizing that, Medica 2 is better. And like that happens all the time. And world first racers do that. And I get people asking like, why is this healer using Medica 1? Is Medica 2 better? And you don't need to know. Like, you don't need to know those things to world race. You need to be able to execute and react and play well. You don't need to know all of the math and the theory for the job. And that's the point I'm trying to get at, is that you can not know those things and still do really well. And while knowing the math and knowing the theory and executing on that will definitely improve your play, it's not going to prevent you from doing anything.
Yeah. I think being a good player is the most important part of World Prog. It's understanding how to be a good player. Yeah.
You don't have to know all of the niche micro math for your job. You just need to know how to play well.
Yeah. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just hit buttons. I just like...
Me too, man.
I just play by feel, and it works. It's like, oh, we need to heal, I guess. I guess I'll just Medica or something.
Medica 1 is so garbage, but like, it's a button people hit because it's there and it makes sense until they like do the math and they're like, oh. But there's nothing wrong with using it other than like their math says something is better. But if you're clearing the content and that's your goal, then it doesn't matter. You've met your goal, right? So I just don't want people to stress too much about it.
Okay. So we're already past 2 hours here, so we are kind of getting towards the end of the show. We could probably keep this conversation going until tomorrow.
Probably.
But I figured that we've done pretty good going over a lot of the key points that needed to be discussed here. Before, there's a few questions to wrap up a couple of topics that we were talking about that were relevant to those. But I wanted to give you guys maybe the chance to say, man, I wish we would have said this, but Frosty interrupted what I was saying about pasta water or something. And maybe you guys had something that you wanted to say you haven't had a chance to say yet. Is there anything that's still on your minds that we haven't discussed? No?
Use Fate.
Oh, that's actually a good point, because there was a question about what DPS and tanks can do more, somebody had this question the other day too in one of the White Mage channels, because do you need to use Bloodbath and Second Wind and those kind of tools? And you don't need to, but why wouldn't you? They're free, and they can help your healer out. And if you're speedrunning, it's a different conversation. We're not talking about that, but like, you have this tool that, it might go 100% to overheal and might be completely wasted, but so what? You've used it, and it might not have, and you've taken that chance. So as DPS and tanks, make sure you're using full use of your kit, not just your damage doing buttons, and that will help your healers out a lot with understanding, and learning the pacing of the game and what they need to heal. Use those cooldowns, use your, party mitigation tools like Addle and Feint. Make sure those are used. Don't sit on them. If you use them wrong and they don't do anything, at least you're trying, and I give you points for that.
It's true.
Oryza.
You use Verace?
I swear to fucking God.
Is it not used as much?
Did you say Verace?
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
Did people stop using it?
there's some white mages who think they shouldn't need to raise because it's a big damage loss, and they're kind of bad.
Like, the difference is like, yeah, okay, sometimes the healer's gonna have to raise, but like, I feel like as a red mage, like, you should at least be keeping like track, because like, I feel like it's pretty easy to like remember, like, oh, we just had 2 deaths. The healers probably have the hard raise at this point. I might as well just get the raise. Well, like, some would just sit there and like, we could have like 6, 7, 15 deaths, and they still wouldn't cast one of their raise. They make the healers every single one.
Oh, also, heroes and PF stop using Swift Cast for damage. At least, like, I don't know. There's so many times where just like someone dies and then both healers just like are standing there hard casting. I'm like, alright, this is the randomest re-clear party. It doesn't matter. I don't know.
I think also it's important, unless if the party states it's a parse run, to play as it's a prog run.
Parse one's different. Yeah, parse one's different.
If you're going in there and you're gonna do a party finder in any way, always play as in you're trying to clear, not you're trying to get parse. I mean, try to do DPS, have fun with it, but don't lose utility. Like exactly what Oryza just said. It's silly. I mean, but that goes into the whole party finder discussion, because party finder is such a mess, and it's a mess because of the players. It really is.
It's time to get Xeno and Arthur's back.
It will come. It will come. We will do that.
It's frustrating as a healer to go into a party finder, because if you're a DPS in a party finder, you can play almost the same as you can with the static. Like, you can't greed like a type, AoE GCD, but like otherwise you're doing relatively the same things, whereas healers cannot play the same in a static environment as they can in a bug environment, because your party's going to die. They're not going to be as coordinated, and it's definitely a different world, and it's kind of weird for some healers, and I think that's why some are blowing Swift on damage when they really should be holding it for raises, because you can't just act like a DPS or a tank would, where you just do the same things. You have to healers adjust.
I think that actually brings up a good point about what makes a good healer is how successful they are overall in the party finders they join, and how much you depend on other players for you to clear a fight. But okay. I'm trying to look and see if there's actually a serious question here, and the viewer questions.
How many troll questions do you get?
Usually the majority. Here's one from 7 Degrees that is a little bit more legitimate. Do you guys prefer healers with 2 DPS skills and 18 healing skills, or would it be better for 18 DPS skills and like 4 healing skills? Like, how would you want to see it evolve?
I like a more. I miss Heavensward healer, so I like a more complicated DPS kit. But that's me.
Okay.
Just bring back, just Stormbolt Scholar was perfect. Just bring that back.
Both. So both, he's saying.
Both. Okay.
No.
So
Stormbolt was like
10
5
and 10.
DPS buttons.
Yeah. I feel like there should be some complication. I think what they did before with Cleric Stance is just gave you a kit that lets you level up and had some DPS stuff to it. And then they threw in Cleric Stance and it was like, yeah, if you want a DPS, you can hit that button and figure it out. But otherwise, just focus on healing. You can always swap over and figure out how the mix of whatever skills we have in here work out. They didn't really try to balance it at all, it felt like, at least with DPS. For healers.
I miss old Cleric Stance. I'm isolated in this, but I actually liked the dynamic attributes of having to switch in and out of the stance. I think getting rid of it is definitely better for the player base as a whole, and like I fully get that, and I'm not telling them to bring it back, but I missed it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
Okay. Another question here. What if every healer got an OP skill like Neutral Sec?
No.
But why?
No.
Like,
to balance it out,
OP,
I
why
guess.
would you give it?
To balance the healers, is make everyone OP, I guess is the suggestion.
like
I mean, that's the Square Enix way.
healer kits, healer kits complete dependent fight design. It would be completely fine if we actually had a reason to use those tools that like they became necessary. But with the current fight design, like, oh god.
Okay.
You want to take one healer into prog or something really dumb like that? Just 5 DPS in prog? So stupid.
Okay. Then the next question here, which is something I think all you guys should answer, is a question from Dakri. Going off of Levy's White Mage is the prettiest, what is your favorite healer weapon?
Like, which glamour?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what they mean.
Yeah.
That's my static mate. I'm pretty sure that's what he means.
Okay. So what is the healer weapon that you have that you're like, I'm so glad they put this in the game, and I want to use it every single time? Nobody?
My weapons count.
I
Yeah.
see, like, there's no white mage cane that I'm like, yes, this is the white mage cane. I think my favorites, I actually really like the relic from like the start of this expansion with the flower on the end. I actually really like that one. I like the T cane quite a bit, and I like the diamond cane from last X pack with the thing on the top. Scholar books, I think the relic is really cool with the glowing out part. And the Astro Globe, I actually think I like the T Astro Globe a lot because it glows really pretty and the gears on it look really nice.
Okay.
All right, so I'll be less basic. So I like the
Wow.
ultimate weapon. There was actually the outside like the obvious
virus.
ones. The cool ones were the Omega Scholar book was actually really neat.
Oh, I did
Where it
like
had like the little what do you call those, like transmutation circle or something, like on the coming out of the book. That's
Okay.
pretty cool.
And did you have other Momo? Others?
I mean, I like the relic ones too, but
Okay.
and the ultimate ones, but yeah, I mean,
I like
current
the
white mage. What one is a stick?
I like the current white mage relic because it's
The stick? You like the stick?
I like the
it's
stick
I
too.
think it's
Actually, you're
hilarious.
right.
I think it's so funny that you just have a tree branch.
Dude,
Like
I love
I'm
this
like the
stick.
type of person. Like I'm the type of person that I would like if I could, I would glamour my scholar book to be like a cardboard, like just like a cardboard rectangle because I think it would look funny, like or something like that, or like I would just have like a fishbowl instead of a astrology globe. Like those are the types of globes I like. So.
Do you have the monk kettle, tea kettle fists?
Oh, I do. I do the invisible ones because I think monk is a mistake. So.
Okay.
Yo, mock your words. 5.4. Oh, dude, I love me a monk. You'll use that mantra.
Do you just wait for
Use the
monk to just be
mantras.
worse? Just wait
Okay,
for
well
the monkey
then
to
they
just be
can.
worse.
Then they'll never be used. Yeah, we'll just like, oh, go away. I don't want you anymore.
I don't
You're
have
not
any
useful.
trust. No faith.
All right. I'll ask a couple more questions here. So this one is, do you think there's any chance they will not add a healer in 6.0?
I don't think they have enough mitigation to prevent the pitchforks if they
Yeah,
don't.
they don't really have a choice. I don't think. I mean, they could do like a 2 DPS, but I really feel like if they don't do another healer, the backlash is going to be so bad. Like I wouldn't care personally. I could not give two shits less about there being a fourth healer. I could play the 3 healer. I mean, if anything, it's easier for me because that means I don't have to focus on 3. But like, I could totally see.
Well, they
The
focused on 3
outrage.
this expansion, right?
Yeah.
So
I think they're gonna add a fourth healer because they kind of have to.
Yeah, they kind of have to.
They did say that the reason they didn't add a fourth healer is to focus on fixing the current 3, and I feel like, how do I put this?
they haven't achieved it.
It's worse.
Yeah, it's-
Okay.
I mean, in terms of like DPS balance, it's better, but like the dichotomy between them is, I think, worse. Yeah, like
Yeah.
like I feel like anything a fourth healer would make it easier for them, especially if they go the route of like splitting Astra into one kind of category. That honestly, I feel like that would be the easiest way for them to balance healers, is just to make Astra strictly shield or strictly regen.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's going to piss off a lot of people because some people love the aspect of
flex.
having
Aha, aspect.
even though most players play in Darmal anyway, so I don't understand why people would actually care too much. But yeah, like I feel like that'd be like the best option. Like, cause I swear that was what they were gonna do last expansion or this expansion. They're gonna make Darnell strictly one type of category of healer, and then the other one would be like a shield healer or a regen healer to make it easier.
Do we think there's any possibility of them not adding any jobs? Because I think that's the only way they could get away with not adding a healer is if they didn't add any new jobs.
No.
Mm,
I don't think they could. You know what the best troll would be is if they added 2 new
Only
limited
limited.
jobs
yeah.
and then just no real jobs.
Oh gosh.
It's okay. All of them we play more than monks, so it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yikes.
Gosh. All right. So this isn't our question. What are your thoughts on healer DPS numbers right now? And because the current top healers out DPS tanks, should this be the case or should it not be the case?
I don't get why people care how one role does in comparison to another role. Like, why does it matter if a healer does more or less than a tank?
My
Like,
EP
I think
gets
that
hurt,
people.
dude.
I mean, there's like, I think the only people who ask this question are there people who like think healers should like have to heal. Like, I think those are the only people who ask that question, because otherwise it's just a number. Why do you care if this number is higher than this number? Like, why does it matter if your goal is to kill the thing? I don't know. I just that question always bothers me. It's like, why do you care? Like, why does it matter?
That argument is strictly for farm. 90% of the cases, a healer's not gonna out DPS a tank during prog.
That's true too.
Like, it's only in farm where that even is an argument.
Okay.
Actually, I don't even think, probably like 99% of the cases. I don't think.
Just the
Maybe
top
one
healers
mage
right
could-
now in
could
like
peak.
parse runs have that kind of situation.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Oryza, who's your favorite waifu? Your favorite
Frosty,
waifu?
you're my favorite waifu.
Nice. Nice.
Good answer.
Yeah. Coming on next show. All right.
Oh,
This is a really long one, so I kind of got to read it to make sure it's.
Now we have no one to do.
I don't know. It's kind of. You know what? Hold on. There's got to be a way that I can't really get this to you. Oh, I can private message you in Twitch, and that way I won't mess up the cameras. And I'll send it to Momo. I don't know if that I sent to you or not. Maybe it did.
If you still have the doc open, you could put it in the doc.
Please use
do that.
whispers. Oh yeah, you're right. I guess I could put it in a doc. Hold on, let me put it in a doc. I'll put it down here because it's just like one of those things. And I'll put it in Twitch chat time here. And then I'll highlight it yellow.
Oh no.
What?
What is this?
Dude, who's writing that?
Didn't you start the whole question thing with like hentai questions are not okay?
Yeah. So I mean, it's you know what? Maybe you can see it there. It's okay.
You can probably skip that one, just probably for the better. Yeah, I don't know about that one. One's yeah.
All right, we'll skip it. We're good. We're getting towards the end of the show here. So there is a I do want to ask and make sure that, again, final check. Is there anything else you guys wanted to say about the conversation overall, about healers and Final Fantasy 14 before we start wrapping up the show? Because we won't have another one of these until, I guess, the next patch when they do a whole bunch of horrible things to healer. And then we need to talk about it. The what?
when they do nothing and we're still
then
mad.
we'll talk about the nothing, because I mean that will be a 2-hour show. I mean it will be
Pure salt.
yeah.
Pure salt stream.
So is there anything else you guys wanted to mention in regards to this show? We're just champions. We just knocked it all out. We're best discussioneers in the world.
Well, I mean, we could have went in depth on, I think, in more things, but like, I don't know.
It's hard to go in depth with all of it.
Yeah, it is, like the second we leave the topic, it leaves my brain. So I don't.
That's fair.
I guess you could say, what is the strongest healer to help carry groups who are having issues?
That is
with
good. That
often?
was a good one.
Did we go over that?
We
I don't think
didn't.
We
didn't go what was the strongest one to carry groups.
I think it's Scholar.
I think it depends on the situation, because, like, in terms of like a damage output, obviously it's gonna be White Mage, because they're the only ones that don't suffer from like having a bad group. But like Astro, absolutely nutty and Party Finder now too. Like if you don't need the damage, they're insane.
Yeah, I guess like it's hard to say because it is situation dependent, right? On Astro, like you'll have Horoscope available a lot of the time just because you don't need it, and you'll have Neutral Sect available all the time, and you'll have Light Speed available all the time. So when things go wrong, you can just pop all three of those. You can get a bunch of reses off, easy heals off. and like you pretty much can stabilize very easily doing that yourself. But I also think Scholar like can do very similar things. It depends what you have available and what you've used, but like generally Seraph will be available. Yeah, it really depends. Like Indom may or may not be available depending what's going on. Like you might have like Dissipation. Like you might have to like if the tank is taking a lot of damage, like Dissipation Lustrates could be really strong. It's very situation dependent. I would mostly say not White Mage.
Yeah, White Mage can't shield, so it's pretty bad on them.
Yeah, like the White Mage's strength is that you can power Cure 3 everybody, but like good luck getting PF to sack up for your Cure 3.
I think the answer to that question depends a lot on the player too. Like the healer to prog best out, which I think was like a similar question we had at one point, like what healers are best for prog. The answer to that question is always going to be whatever the player is most comfortable playing as, more than like, is it Scholar, like which class it is. Like if you're more comfortable at one of those jobs than another job, like very few people are so good at all three that like they actually can make the decision based on like the kit. A lot of them are like better at one or two than the other. It's always going to be which one you're more comfortable on and which one you're better at. So like the what's the word I'm looking for? The balance between them isn't so huge that you're screwing over your group, unless you're doing World Prog. Which if you're doing World Prog, why are you even asking this question to us, or to me, or to whoever? But if you're a regular person and you're asking
the
this
regular
question,
people.
Oh God, now I sound like a jerk. If you're trying to figure out what's best for your group and you're doing like normal prog, like average,
normal, average, casual.
I can't get out of that hole, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
if you're a regular player, whatever's more comfortable for you is never going to hold your group back. Like if you're having issues clearing something because you're on the wrong job, that's not what's actually happening. There's many other factors contributing to that.
Okay. That's fair.
And now I sound like a jerk.
No. I mean, that's what we only bring toxic assholes on this show, anyways.
Crap.
But yeah, okay. I feel like that's a pretty decent note to leave this off on. I mean, we did go over a bit, and I don't mind because I love talking to you guys. You guys are a lot of fun to bring on and help my ignorance with healing, because I can only know what people tell me about healing because I don't go out there and do it myself currently. Maybe I should just go, before I do these job shows, I'm just going to level up every single one of those to max and go and do Party Finder in every single role and make sure I completely understand every single one. Because I feel yeah. We'll have one show a year about jobs, and we will not do any more. So about 2021, we'll do the range DPS show, and Oryza will come on that show. No,
if you want to listen to me complain, I mean, I'm in.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys again for coming on the show. Like I said, it's been excellent. This is the point where I would like each of you guys to say a little bit about yourselves, where people can find you, and any kind of last shout outs that you might have before we leave the air. And I will go clockwise again here and start with Oryza.
Wait, what am I supposed to say?
Shout outs and where people can find you.
Oh no, I didn't think about this in advance.
He doesn't care about anyone.
No, shout out to you, Frosty. You're the most important person. Because for doing the show. And honestly, congrats on 200 again. Like, it's really important.
Thank you.
That was really cool.
Thank you,
I thought that was really awesome. Other shout outs to my people who watch my stream and support me a lot. It's cool.
Yeah.
And then where can find me? Mm-hmm. I can put my links in the. Yeah, I can put my
do
Twitter.
it. Can someone permit him first before he does it? So he oh, you mod? Okay, you're good. Sorry.
All right, well,
Doesn't even know.
I don't even know. I just mod people. Usually, I just mod guests that need to post stuff in chat, and a couple other people.
Yeah, I stream on Twitch like 4 days a week, and I talk about a lot of actually similar stuff to this. A lot of design stuff, a lot of healer stuff. So
okay,
put that link, and then you can follow me on Twitter if you want to listen to me talk about release. I just retweet memes. I don't know. It's not important.
Okay, and I'll send you a check for the ad there too. I appreciate it. The positive words.
I'm checking my PayPal right now.
Okay. Momo, what would you like to shout out, and where can people find you?
Shout out to you, Frosty. Thanks for having me on the show, dude. You were so cool. This is like my 4th time being on here, dude. Congratulations for the 201st episode. That's sick. That's honestly so cool, dude. I'm so proud of you. Good job. Do you need my email?
Yeah. Send me your PayPal.
No, I'm so, thanks so much for having me on the show, man. It was awesome. Yeah, shout out to my lovely Rinten. I know you're watching.
Your
big
whole
fan.
world.
My world.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you can find me at Twitch and YouTube at FFXIV Momo.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I'll see if I can have enough money in my PayPal account because I was paying Oryza a lot, but because he's really good at it.
For 1,000, right?
A little more than that. No. Levy.
Okay, well, I'm going to break the pattern for a bit because I know he's not watching, but I'm going to do a shout out to my dad because it's his birthday.
Oh.
Aww.
Happy birthday, Dad.
So happy birthday to my dad. I will, okay, now I'll go back to the pattern. I will shout out to Frosty because I shared this earlier today, but 3 years ago I was watching one of his shows with a bunch of healers on and, hearing him 3 years later, and it's been a whirlwind, but your show has definitely impacted not only myself but so many players in this community, and it's been fantastic. So appreciate that. I will shout out to my best friends, Ramza, and everybody else out there in my community who are fantastic. People looking to find me, it's Salted Levity, no space, Twitter and Twitch, and then my website is saltedxiv.com. It's got links or is hosting guides from the balance and other things that people want to make. It can it's a one-stop shop for any kind of community content. I'm building it, I'm deving it out. It's not everything's finished, but check it out. Give me feedback if you want to contribute, if you want to add content, go for it. Send me a message. Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. And I'll send you your check. You'll get the higher tier of the payment.
Wait, what the fuck?
No, like it's funny when people say stuff like that too, because I come on here, I'm like, just coming on to talk with people and have fun, and then someone says that to me, and I'm like, shut the fuck up. That's all I could think. Like, no way.
Whoa, capital D colon.
I wasn't sure I was going to be able to find the chat log, so when I dug it up and it was like, oh yeah, here's a healer show. Oh wow, there's a lot of dudes on it. Maybe I could not be bad one day and be on it. And then 3 years later, I don't know. It was cool to find.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate all you guys. And again, you're all wonderful people. Oryza, I've had wonderful experiences with you, especially going through that whole method nonsense that we went through together.
I don't know if I would call that a wonderful experience. But
No.
we got
It was,
through it.
when you survive like a traumatic event together with someone, you get a little bit closer to them. Yeah, and so you're always a positive force in the community. And Momo, you're always a lot of fun, and you say funny shit every once in a while, so I appreciate that.
Obvious for dude. Feels bad, man.
And Levity, I'm so glad to have you on the show because I want to bring more people on the show that haven't been on the show before, and that's my goal with MogTalk, is to make sure that we try to always introduce more people as we go along with the show. And I never want to stop expanding because community doesn't stop, and I don't think that MogTalk should either. With that being said, I do want to thank everybody that's watching the show right now. You guys are amazing. Twitch chat, you're so great. Thank you so much for coming and talking about healers with us today. Thank you everybody who supports stream. Thank you very much to my wife, who's my emotional support in the background and puts up with me doing the show every week. And thank you so much to Andre Kane, who lets me use his music in the intro and the closing of the show, and all the people who you guys heard their music before the show started. They're all wonderful people. And that all being said, yeah, guys, remember to be good. Oh, wait. I do want to give you information about next week's show. It is going to be a show on the mentor system in Final Fantasy XIV. We're going to be discussing about the mentor system and how Square Enix helps people, or not helps people, learn how to be better at this game. So that's next week. And we also have another show planned out a week past that, which is with Junebob. Who makes healer guides, or not healer guides, I'm sorry, guides in general. A lot of Savage guides that are extremely well done, very artful, and he puts a lot of hard work into them. So we're going to be discussing making guides with him. So guys, make sure to see both of those shows. And remember, until next week, be good, keep cool, stay frosty. Everybody wave and say bye. You gotta say bye too.
Bye.
Okay, here we go. Credits time.